For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
The second half of the championship season starts here as Vulcan Motorsports Gold reclaim their lead at the front of the team's championship order. The European leg of the season is complete, and with it we arrive in the Americas, arriving here first in Montreal, Canada, surrounded by the walls and water around this 4.3 and the 14 turns of this rollercoaster venue, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. 1 hour ahead of us this evening for our drivers to hold their nerve and keep errors down to a minimum. One mistake could prove to be about as costly as they have been all season across our 5 previous races. Up here in the commentary box, you join myself and my commentary partner, as always, Mr. Dara Thacker, who will hopefully be joining us just before the race gets underway in a few moments' time. It's just me for now, so with 5 rounds past and 5 to go, some excellent circuits yet to face these drivers. We're starting the second phase of this championship off with a cracker tonight. Then we have lots of cars out there on the circuit ready to go, nearly 40 of them with us between the walls here in Montreal. Many lap times getting posted. We'll soon join on board with a few of them, see how they're getting on toward the end of this qualifying session then. But to begin with, let's go through the formalities as we always do before we head back to trackside to catch the end of our qualifying session. So let's take a quick look at the series sponsors. As always, then we have Camit, who are responsible for creating and delivering the trophies which all of these drivers are competing for. So a big thanks to them. We have Sim Coach, our in-person, real-life, well not in-person, our real-life sim coaching team. We have Garage Wraps and we have Trophy AI joining us once again for this championship season. So a big thank you to the 4 of them for their continued support of this series. Quick look at the calendar. As always, we're getting towards crunch time now as we enter round 6. We've had the European, like I've said, is done and dusted after that Italian doubleheader. This time last week it was Mugello and then Imola. We arrive here tonight before we head to Texas, then the state of Florida, then we head to Road America toward the back end of November before the season finale in Asia, in Japan, around the Suzuka Grand Prix circuit. Personally, cannot wait for that one. So, a quick run through of the standings. It's going to, as I said, just me tonight. So, I'm going to have my work cut out for me as I look to cover all three of the championships that we have going on in this series then. So, let's start first with the elite class drivers as always then. So, Andrew Dawson, the sim coach Mercedes, continues to lead the way. He's on 370 points coming into it tonight, looking to maintain his championship lead and make it 4 podium finishes in a row, and of course maintain that top 4 finishing position in all races since the beginning of the season. It's that kind of consistency that sees the sim coach driver lead the way at the front. However, if anyone's got something to say about that, it will be Sam Derbyshire. He could make it 3 wins off the bounce with a strong result tonight. He trails the championship lead by only 4 points. A win tonight will see him leading the championship coming into round 7 by a minimum of 6 points, of course, depending on where Andrew Dawson might finish. Our first multi-race winner of the season, of course, 3 in 5 for the Vulcan Motorsports Gold driver. The Corvette doing very well for Mr. Derbyshire as it stands then. Jack Plug in 3rd. He is also yet to finish outside of the top 4 this season. However, with only 1 race victory to his name, it's becoming more of a challenge for him to stay with that lead pair, but only 42 points behind second, 46 behind the championship leader. And let's not forget, the difference between P1 and P7 in all of these races is 46 points. So he's not at all out of it. It takes 1 slip up by Dawson or Derbyshire and a strong result by Plug that could really turn the tables in his favour then. Hayden Miller, the second of our Vulcan Motorsports Gold drivers. It was his joint best result of the season last time out. He sits on 274 points. He recovered nicely from that earlier DNF, so his best result in round 3, failing to finish in the 4th, back on the horse in P3 this time last week. The Scotsman sits 50 points behind the top 3. He'll be hoping to bridge that gap a little bit more this evening after some good results as of late. Mr. Vinciszewski's then, the pole man for what was the first 3 rounds of the race, 3 rounds of the season, wasn't able to keep that up. He missed the 4th round, and I think he qualified inside the top 4 last week. Let's see where he sits as we rejoin for qualifying in a few moments' time. But back with us, a race to forget for him last week, finishing 10th after that promising opening stint towards the front with the rest of those Vulcan drivers. In the end, it wasn't to be for the Lamborghini. For Mr. Vinciszewski's 248 for him, just 26 points behind the sister team of Hayden Miller ahead. Jan Hilden then, he performs well when he races, but having missed 2 of the opening 5 rounds, it's becoming difficult for him to keep his place. He's dropped down from 4th to 6th. Let's see if he's racing with us tonight and see if he can get back in, well, stay in touching distance of the drivers inside the top 5, of course. We can see a podium for him, yet to finish outside the top 6 for the Finn when he has on a nice 222 points. Luc van Goorl next up. He's had some steady results for the Dutchman so far this season. It was a bit of a shaky start at the front with a 10th and a 12th to get things underway, but since then he's had some pretty comfortable and consistent finishes. He must have that Porsche dialed in exactly where he wants it. Could be one to watch around here this evening. Let's see which car seems to benefit, but the Porsche could do quite well around a circuit like this. So let's see how his pace fares. He's had a 5th, a 6th and a 6th in the last 3 weeks. He could be on for a good one tonight. Lewis Kenyon, bit of a rollercoaster season for him. He's never finished in the same place twice, and he comes into this race off the back of his worst finish of the season. P13 for him last time out at Imola. A rollercoaster of a season, but he's got a rollercoaster of a circuit in front of him tonight. That could play into his hands. Only time will tell. Pedro Louis da Silva, the lead McLaren in the elite class, broke the duck of his own record last week, slotted himself right in between that predicted form. It was a 9th to 7th, and now he's gone 8th. So sadly, it wasn't another 9th place to keep that form up, but still, consistent results for Pedro, finishing inside the top 10, inside the top 9 at every opportunity so far this season. He'll be hoping for a little bit more out of his McLaren, of course, maybe to put pressure on the top 5, which, given that form, it's definitely still within his sights with 5 rounds left to go. If he can be the one to always finish in those decent points finishes, we're likely to see others dropping out of it, of course. We've had DNFs in the top 5. We've had 13th for Derbyshire. We've had a 10th of Inchezevski's. We've had missed races for some other drivers so far. Pedro Luda Silva, nothing to shout about really, but very consistent from the GPX SimSports driver. Justin Eloff hasn't scored points since the 3rd round of the championship. Over a fortnight to go, he'll be focusing on doing what he can in the team's championship, I would imagine, while the rest of his teammates compete at the front of this championship order. But we've seen Justin coming along nicely, and he's got a result in him, no doubt about that, at the right time and at the right track. Let's see if he's with us tonight firstly, and if he is, if he can get himself in a good position. Matt Hoyland changed over to the Mustang, which brought him his season's best result. However, from what I'm hearing, he won't be with us tonight, so it could be a chance for Mr. Thomas Critchell in 12th to regain some of those places. However, he might be a little bit lonely out there on the circuit, because as we've seen, he's shared some great battles with Matt Hoyland over the last couple of weeks. Let's see how the Mustang gets on for Dark Wing Racing. So next over in the Premier standings then, Toby Hardiak, after a P2 finish last week, sits on 370 points. Failed to finish in the 4th round, but aside from that, he's been on the podium every time so far. That 4th round, of course, around Mugello was a disconnection. So when he's finished the race and took the checkered flag, he's finished in a very strong position. That is exactly why he leads his championship and leads Scott Kostrick in the McLaren by 76 points at the halfway stage of the season. Still not out of sight, he still has work to do, but he'll be feeling comfortable ahead of the GPX SimSports Vertex McLaren. Luke Bailey's had a pretty good run of it, an opening win a few weeks ago, and since then he's missed a couple of rounds, but he's been on the podium ever since. Put on a great display last week around Imola, of course, snatching pole position away from Toby Hardiak and the likes of Grant Miller by 7/1000ths of a second at the line, at the death this time last week, which eventually saw him convert from pole, taking home 100 points, maximum points for himself and the team. Let's keep our eyes out if Luke is with us tonight. Doesn't look like he is at the moment. Yes, he is. He's just a little way down the order, sadly, for Luke in that Mercedes. Maybe he can punch in another one of his heroic last lap times toward the end of the session. Grant Miller then in 4th, the second of the 2 McLarens inside the top 4 for Phoenix Racing Red. He's just 14 points off the back of 3rd, who of course is only 4 points off the 2nd, so 18 points separating Scott Kostrick to Grant Miller. Lots can change between those drivers. Scott's been pretty quiet as of late, but he's been bringing home the points without much fuss. A podium and a 1st place finish for Mr. Miller around Mugello, of course, but the inconsistencies for him, the 10th and the 11th place, won't do his championship any good. Needs to stop having those kind of results if he wants to be sure that he'll finish inside the top 3. John Ludbrook, it's been a very mixed results of It's been a season of mixed results for Mr. Ludbrook for GPX SimSports Xeon, of course. 2 podium finishes, 2 DNFs, and then right in the middle there in P7. It's good enough for him to be inside the top 5, but he's got to look over his shoulder because the cluster of McLarens come next, leading by Samuel Clark, just 6 points off the back of him. He had to finish outside the top 10, but failed to race this time last week, which has allowed Graham Vivers to come back into it ever so slightly. Sadly for Graham, had a great start of the season. Since then, he's been unable to recover that form, one of the few BMWs in his class. 4 McLarens out of the next 5 drivers coming next, and Lewis Hammond had one of his best results of the season since the opening round there, finishing in 6th. He's just 2 points away from the BMW ahead. Barry Wenman got his equipment back in order, of course, had the Logitech out for Mugello, got himself on his Moser gear, I think it was, last time out, and that brought him a best result of the championship. So Barry will be feeling confident, I'm sure, coming into this one for DXC Motorsports KMR. The gap's so tight. Look at them all from 5th all the way down to 9th. Very few points separating those drivers as things stand then. Michael Rhodes, the next McLaren, he's doing okay to keep himself inside the top 10. He's got to look over his shoulder there, though, because Wesley Van Ren had his best result of the season, getting on the podium, putting pressure on that McLaren. In the Porsche is the Dutch 9 Pegasus Panthera driver. And then Jan Osberg, sadly, unable to join us again this evening, so it will be another week without scoring any points for Mr. Osberg for iRacing, but he's still on our graphic. Let's see if he's here this time next week. And now then, the team's championship really starting to heat up and things staying very close toward the front. We have a new leader who have led, I believe, already this season. I think the Vulcan Motorsports red guys started well, Axis came along, and now the Vulcan Motorsports gold team, after Sam Derbish's strong result last week and Hayden Miller's podium finish, brought home some very substantial points indeed. That would have been 180 points to add to their tally of the result last week, and that helps them lead the Axis SimSports blue team by just 52 points. So things will change, I'm sure, very quickly, but Codman, Hutchinson, Johnson and Larkman have to work together to bring home the points for the fastest two drivers out there tonight. Ignas Vinchezevsky's Tekberg and Justin Eloff will be aiming to catch up, of course, with the Axis SimSports blue team to maybe try and cement that 1-2 finish in the team's championship for the pair of their Vulcan teams. But so far, they're trailing by a handful of points, yet to cross that 700 point mark. I'm sure tonight, though, they will achieve that. The lead of our Phoenix Racing Red team is next in fourth, still with their hands on a trophy. Taylor, Rice, Miller and Matthew will be leading the way ahead of the Vulcan Fasteners by Glass Tech Racing. Hoyler not with us tonight. Nick, I believe, is down there in Split B. Luke is with us here, and I think Owen also misses out. So the points will be scored by Nick and by Luke tonight. However, their recent form has been exceptional. The team have risen from 16th to 8th into the top 5 over the last 3 weeks, bringing home almost maximum points over the last fortnight. So it's over to Stubb and Bailey to bring home the money for that team. Phoenix Racing Blue, Vivas, Hardiak and Cotton doing pretty well. Of course, Vivas doing exceptionally well in his Premier class, obviously sitting in the top 7 as it stands, and then Toby Hardiak leading the way in that Premier class. DC Motorsports next inside the top 7 is Duke, Love, Douglas and Collier, ahead of the Moonshiners Racing Club of Fraser, Liam Fraser, James Fraser, Dean Shusby and Rob Gregg. Sim Coach, sadly for them, dropping down the order. Dawson fighting at the front on his own isn't really helping. The points that he's bringing home is not enough to compete with the drivers above them. Benson, Foster and Pioneer will hope to help consolidate some more points for that team. The GPX SimSports Vertex team of Cowlishaw, Kostrick and Newton doing well at the moment. We haven't seen Cowlishaw out there on track for a while, but Kostrick bring home the points in the Premier class. That sees them on 522, just 4 points clear of the GPX SimSports Xeon team of Noel Brown, Ludbrook and Sarika Desler. I'm sure there'll be some banter going on in the GPX server as to who will finish ahead, and they've done pretty well to split the teams up because only 4 points separates them coming into the second half of the season. Then the rest of the top 20, MJK Sim Racing ahead of Dexter Motorsports Kmar, it's Darkwing Racing ahead of LS Racing, and then the Iris Racing duo of Osberg and Naj ahead of the STL Group and Simcast. The second of our 2 Darkwing Racing teams will be next of Fairley, Hilden and Jovan Harag, and then it's Phoenix Racing Green, Hodgson, Welland, Cordy and Milton joint on 288 points with the team ahead of them. So then, we join the drivers on trackside as Luke Bailey takes a scrape across the wall, and that BMW, I think that's an Axis BMW, takes an absolute whack off the wall. Maybe he followed Bailey's line on the exit there, took it a little bit too far, and it's cost him some time. So I don't think he's going to recover from that one. He's probably reset back to the pit lane. As he does so, we do find Mr. Andrew Fairley in his Mustang then. So let's ride on board with him as he exits the Wall of Champions. Let's not, because he pulls away off of to one side of the road. Who's going to be next across the line? It's Sam Derbyshire. Let's see what he can do in his Corvette as he heads off on a lap here then. So you get through the Wall of Champions. You've got to set your exit up nicely when you're in qualifying, of course. You can afford to be a little bit slower on the entry to get the power down as early as possible. Through turn 1, right into the left-hander, get it tucked in and slowed down nicely through turn 2, and then be careful when you open up the steering, because if you put your power down too soon while the steering lock's still on, you risk the rears trying to overtake the front. Starbush has handled that one nicely. Take lots of curb, both the right and the left as you head through 3 and 4, and then you take it flat out, hugging the inside wall there through turn 5. Pick your braking point on 6. Watch out for the grass before it becomes concrete on the right hand side, and you can take a lot of that inside left hand curve. Through 6 and 7 then running out wide to carry as much speed as you can down toward the bridge at turn 8. Difficult marks here. Just as you go under the bridge, get on the brakes, using the tarmac on the left-hand side, and again, taking as much out of both of those curves without losing the car. Sam Derbyshire having to soar at the wheel there to keep his Corvette in a straight line now. One of the heaviest braking zones on the track coming up next, the hairpin down at turn 10. A pretty optimistic overtaking opportunity that we'll see a lot of drivers taking there tonight. Down into first gear for the Corvette there as he gets back on the power through the kink at turn 11. You've got one more corner to come. Turn 12, not much of it. Here it is, that apex there, turn 12. Not much of a corner anymore. And now the Wall of Champions. Where's he going to brake? You want to brake a little bit early just to make sure that you're not going to carry the speed too much. Send it over the right curb, but not too much. And then over the left curb. He's done that right, just about avoid that barrier on the exit there. And that seems like a pretty tidy lap by Sam Derbyshire, apart from that wobble coming out of turns 8 and 9. It wasn't an improvement in any sector for Derbyshire. However, he won't mind, should I say, because he currently leads the way at the front of the order then. So it's Mr. Derbyshire leading Vinciszewski's and Plurg, the two Lamborghinis. Vinciszewski's only 3/100ths of a second away from pole. The 100 Lithuanian driver wants to get back to how things started at the front, at the start of the championship. So far, so good for the Vulcan Motorsports Gold driver leading the way, and it's the Vulcan Motorsports red duo of Vinciszewski's and Plurg next up. Here comes Dawson then, down toward the Wall of Champions in his Mercedes, doing pretty well, of course. He's one of the few in that Mercedes in a competitive position at the moment. You'll have to look all the way down to formerly Matt Hoyland, who is now no longer in the Mercedes, before you find another one. So he's out there on his own at the front. Obviously, Sam Derbyshire not too far behind. If the results were to stay the same as they are now, then Derbyshire would, of course, lead the championship by quite a margin coming into round 7, but so far so good for Dawson. He will look to improve. He'll be pleased to see that he's got Benson with him as well, as the Mercedes takes a little scurry over the grass. Just maybe he made a mistake on the entry there, and he keeps going around for another lap. He won't be setting the timing tower ahead with this one, that's for sure, but he'll be preparing himself ready to go again then. Back across the line is Inglis. Vinciszewski's will ride on with him, see if he can improve as things go on. We should be joined very shortly by Mr. Dara Thacker, who can help us fill in the blanks, of course, but I'm very much looking forward to this one. I think this is a track that is a real driver's circuit, a big challenge, of course. You're one miscalculation away from a retirement around here. So easy to lose the rear through some of these high-speed corners, and then you're met with those barriers. And of course, when you take too much out of the curbs, which is where you find the lap time, it's very easy to find oversteer. You can spin. Obviously, if you spin in the right direction, you'll be all right. But we've already seen at the start of our qualifying session, we saw that BMW taking a little bit of a ride over one of the curbs, and it didn't quite end well for him then. Let's bring up the quali times, see how people are getting on. Yellow sectors all around once again as Fretwell, Dawson and Miller make their way down toward the start-finish line. John Breitenbach as well. Luke Bailey has posted a time good enough for P1 in the Premier class. He was down there in 12th not so long ago when we were running through the order, and now he's posted a time of a 34.721, which is 39/1000ths of a second ahead of the 93 Thiago Reisa. Now, of course, Thiago hasn't qualified very much so far this season, so that throws a little spanner in the works for some of these drivers toward the front of the Premier class, of course. If he wasn't there, it'd be Hardiek leading Miller, leading Clark, which is more of a familiar start in that division. But with Thiago Reisa, the Brazilian, choosing to drive and qualify in this session, that makes it slightly harder. That makes it harder for Hardiek to start just in behind Luke Bailey. They'll be pleased to know that there's no elite drivers in the middle of them at the moment. It's Jamie Foster in 14th, Luke Bailey in 15th, and then we have 4 of those Premier drivers in a row before we reach Alex Fretwell down there in 15th overall then. Fairley and Derbyshire in the pit lane at the moment with just 6 minutes to go in this qualifying session. The Aston Martin there taking a little spin on the exit of that one. Toby Hardiek is out there on track in his Porsche. Let's ride on board and see how he gets on. An improvement in the middle sector by Graham Beavers, but that doesn't look like it is in fact going to improve his time. Puts himself up into P6. He gets himself ahead of Danny Phillips and Pedro Luis da Silva in the elite class while he's at it as well. It's a very good by Graham, a last-ditch effort. He's going again, going round for one more lap on what will be his 27th of the session. Quick scan to see who's done the most laps out there tonight. I'm not seeing anybody beating 36, which is Samuel Clark at the moment. A few of the guys toward the front, Fairley and Plurg, are on their 35th laps, but no one else has done 36. So fair play to Samuel Clark for dragging that McLaren around so much in this last hour. And let's see as Toby Hardiak brings that Porsche toward the line. Pedro Luis da Silva on a flying lap as well at the moment. We'll ride on board with him as he crosses the line. It's only good enough for one position. He takes Alex Fretwell. He's 1.4 seconds away from pole. Hardiak then through the wall of champion chicane. He's taken a lot of that left-hand curve, but he's managed to get it slowed down. Not exactly lighting up the timing tower. Is it going to be an improvement for the number 31 as he crosses the line? Don't think it is. No, it is not. It's a 6.98 for him. That's best part of a second away from what he needs from pole. He's going to go around once again, then they're going to have a chance for another 2 or 3 laps at the moment. Of course, remember, in this open qualifying format, if you start the lap before the timer hits 0, you can go again for one more run. And we've been timely joined as we approach the final 5 minutes of the session by Mr. Dara Thacker. Dara, welcome in. How are you doing?
I'm well, Joe. Thank you. I'm sorry for being late. I've driven over 450 miles today, but I'm here. I gave you a wave as I went past the northeast. But yes, sorry to everyone for being slightly late, and to you as well, because it's not the easiest way to start broadcast skills with all the screens. But yeah, really happy to be here, and glad I got here by the end of qualifying, because this is a track that I think you can kind of look to at the start of the season as one that drivers don't really use that much, particularly for GT cars, and particularly on iRacing. But it is a short track, so time should be close, which means that the unpredictability plus, fine lines between good lap times and mediocre lap times means that we are seeing a couple of more surprising qualifying results, like just Samuel Clark getting to the top of the time sheets. Yeah,
the first time I think he's led in the Premier Class, so a cracking effort by him. He's done. He's probably celebrating in the car, thinking, hoping at least, that no one will be able to beat that time as he resets back to the pit lane. Nearly a 10th and a half clear of Luke Bailey. I'd be hard pressed to believe that that one is going to be beaten. Here comes Toby Hardiak though, again yellow in the opening 2 sectors, crosses the line. It's not going to be an improvement, I don't think, for the 31. Once again, we just followed him on that lap before you joined us, Dara, and it wasn't anything to shout about at all. That now puts him best part of 2 tenths away from pole. A little bit of pressure on the championship leader, but I'm sure he'll be more than satisfied to be starting the race. So close to everyone in his battle, of course. Toward the front, Vinciszewski's out there on the track. Derbyshire back out there on the track as well. Let's see if those two change positions before the end. Only 3 100ths separate the 2 men leading the way in the elite class.
Yeah, it's great to see that they are so close towards the front of the field. It's exactly what we want to be seeing as we get towards the latter stages of this session. And there are so many times within that 1 second mark, particularly in that Premier class as well, that loads of drivers that are finding themselves within even a couple of tenths of that overall fastest time from Samuel Clark. Toby Hardiak, I'm sure, will be one to try and improve in the final couple of minutes when he crosses the line. I think he'll only have time for one more after that. Whoa, big air from, I believe that's Josh Benson going across the final couple of corners. He's P8 at the moment. He's exactly 2/3 of a second off, but he improved by a couple of tenths. P6, that's a good position to start in here.
Yeah, but he was seeing his delta time dropping rapidly as he absolutely sent it over that final curb there. That looked very committed indeed. He was on the limit there between hero to zero. Thankfully for him, it was a bit of a hero's finish, and he actually pips Mr. Andrew Dawson potentially for the first time in qualifying this season. Currently 7th is the championship leader, half a second slower than Sam Derbyshire. I wonder if that's car dependent, or maybe Andrew just hasn't quite found the lap time yet, but that might be a little bit concerning for him, knowing of course how close that championship is at the front. Derbyshire trailing him by 4 points coming into the session tonight, and with a potential race, it might not be race pace, but potential race pace difference of half a second, that could spell danger for the Mercedes. Let's see what his response is. He's gone green in the opening sector. He's gone yellow in sector 2. Is he going to improve? It probably will be as he crosses the line. Mr. Dawson, is that going to put him ahead of his teammate? Is it going to keep him where he is? I think, Dara, he's going to stay right where he is. He hasn't improved. He took a big chunk out of his time in that opening sector at 26.1 compared to a 26.0 by Sam Derbyshire. So a 10th in it. Still, his best opening sector. Not enough to trouble the guys in the top 5 though.
No, not yet. At least he's just got this one final attempt to do so if he's going to be able to manage it. Luke Van Gortel, looks like he was setting up a lap time there as he comes across at the start-finish line. Ignaz Vincent-Chevsky, that's him done out of the final couple of corners. He will not be improving at all. Grant Miller, only 2/10 off the fastest time in the session. Is there anything to find right at the death? No, there isn't. A lap time a few tenths off of his personal best. He will stay P5 at best.
Yeah, he might be going for one more, of course. He's able to do that. Pedro Luis Silva and Lucas Diaz Antunes with black flags, so they'll be out of the session as things stand. Andrew Fairley still out there then, but at snail's pace. That will be his session done and dusted then. Thomas Critchell about to cross the line in that Mustang. Lonely, I said earlier, Dara, because Matt Hoyland isn't with us tonight. And hey, it's been Hoyland and Critchell's little battle over the last couple of weeks since Mugello, since Imola last week. So Mr. Critchell finds himself out there a little bit lonely. Perhaps the Corvette of Lewis Kenyon might be his companion for this one. He's not going to be able to go again. That will be his laps done. Danny Phillips for DXT Kmart crosses the line. Scott Kostrick improves up to 6th in the Premier class. And Andrew Dawson, let's not count him out, Dara. 2 personal bests. Has he run out of fuel as he crosses the line? It looks like he has.
That's just not what he needed at all. It was going so well. Maybe he knew that he was going to run out of fuel, or maybe he just knew the lap wasn't going to improve by the end of it and just wanted to slow down enough to cross that checkered flag so he didn't have to go around again, maybe. Grant Miller, someone we have to keep an eye out for. Middle sector is purple for him. He's coming up towards the final 2 corners now, so we see on board with him through the cockpit, through the windshield, and let's see, is there any improvement as he bounces his way through the final couple of corners. Curbs so high, you can see how aggressive he has to be over them. Keep it out of the wall of champions on the outside line and then pin it to the line. He's only at 2/10 off. I said he was going to stay P5. I'm guessing we have to eat my words. If he can find any time in that final sector, has he? Yes, he has. It was the long wait for the iRacing time page to update, but he's gone P3, only 100th off the front row, but I think a decent qualifying that he'll have to be pleased with.
It is, and I'm watching on board there. It's so crucial around here, of course, thinking to circuits that we will arrive to and circuits that we've been to already. Canada has the timing line is so far down towards turn 1 that a bad exit can really make it difficult to keep up with that time, of course. Thinking Imola or thinking Kota, you can get a bad exit and it doesn't really matter because the timing line is so close to the exit of the final corner. Same can't be said around here though. You've got to be committed and you've got to get on the power without running too close to that wall and carry the speed all the way down the straight. Then Danny Phillips is setting his personal best sectors in the first and second. Doesn't improve in the third, but you'd think that'll bump him up the timing tower just a little bit. As it does, he crosses through turn 1 and it doesn't, Dara. He stays where he is and he doesn't improve beyond any of the Premier drivers as well. Currently 25th overall with 8 Premier drivers ahead of him. So 2 personal best sectors in the opening 2. Not enough to even get a single position on the grid, never mind in class.
Yeah, no, you really needed to, particularly as we get into the second half of the season. We've had our half in Europe. We're now moving to North America. It's exciting how that how we've been able to have the season in 2 parts, but it really means that you have to be ready to go here. And again, this isn't a track the drivers will know too well. So to start further back and in the melee and what is a street track, you know, you can't really afford getting called out in some of these lap 1 incidents, which are almost certain to happen.
Absolutely right then. So Danny Weir, Hayden Miller and Luke Bailey make their way out onto the track. A Corvette, a Porsche and a Mercedes meet at turn 1, of course. An interesting pit lane here as well that the drivers have to be conscious of. It's the run down toward the final chicane where the drivers have to stay on the outside of the track before they dive into the pit lane. It's a pretty straight entry with a bit of a corner as you approach the pit line. But yeah, we've seen drivers in the past in this series and of course in other series almost fighting for a position on the way into the pit lane. And what's difficult is if you're gaining on a driver who's not coming into the pit lane, they're going to brake earlier than you, and you've got to be aware for that. We've seen some drivers, sadly for them in the past, who've completely misjudged it, thought that they could carry so much speed in the pit lane, which of course you're allowed to do, but not at the expense of someone who's taking the normal racing line. So something for these drivers to watch, of course, over the next hour. Pit stops will be involved in this race, as always, and a very interesting entry, and of course an interesting exit, Dara, because you meet right at the apex of the second corner, and it's very difficult sometimes for drivers to predict someone coming out of the pit lane, sometimes blind as well for the driver who's exiting the pit back onto the circuit.
Yeah, can be tricky and can be quite treacherous as well, so you've got to be wary of it. And it's just one of the nuances of the circuit, isn't it, really? Weird pit entry, weird pit exit in ways that you don't get really anywhere else. Apart from actually, it reminds me of Shanghai, isn't it? Into the final corner, don't run into the car, or don't run into the car in front if you're trying to come into the pit lane. But on the exit, yeah, you cut a little bit off. A little bit like... well, I can't think of any actions off my head, so there you go. Unique in my mind. But yeah, it does mean that... Oh, hello. Goodness me.
Okay.
Well, you don't want to be doing that in the race.
No, you don't. Danny Phillips has had a massive coming together there with one of the McLarens, was it, Dara? I wasn't sure. Well, anyway, I kind of want to go and see what happened, but sadly, it's not on our timing tower, so I can't. But that is exactly what you want to avoid going into turn 1 in a straight line. Not really sure how that happened, but it's all good. It's just the warm-up. So watching on with Dennis Curler at the moment. I was going to say it was Danny Weir, the number 5 Porsche that we were watching before. And think to liveries gone by, Dara. Do you remember when Danny was running that Lightning McQueen livery? And it's a bit of a stark contrast to what he's got now. Kind of a plain, but still, a subtly nice white livery with those red rims is maybe a little bit more questionable. But he's had some pretty striking liveries in the past, and he's completely changed it up for this one. We haven't seen much of him this season, in all fairness.
No, we haven't. Nice that, go away. We're moving continent, train to the paintwork. Maybe you've got someone, a decal in North America, decal for Europe. That's nice. But yeah, it's nice to see. And we always get nice variation here in SRI, don't we? With all the different liveries and teams that come to show. And even like Vulcan, you can see at the back there. I'm not sure exactly there. This could be Plug at the back.
That'll do.
Either way, one of the Lamborghinis, there you go. They have those slight nuances, don't they? Ignace has the slight nod to the Lithuanian flag in his. It's nice that they, even though they're in the same team and they're clearly in the same team, there's no major differences. There are those minor ones that when you look car to car, you can tell it's quite nice, I think. Yeah,
well, there's quite an obvious giveaway on the back of Hayden Miller's car, and that is the Scottish flag, so you cannot really miss that one. That's less subtle on the Lithuanian hints that Vinciszewski's has on there, but he and Mr. Plug enter themselves into the pit lane. A few lap times being posted out there on the circuit, just getting a feel for the cars on high fuel and cold tyres as well. It's a very, very useful thing to do in the 5 minutes that we have. We've seen it pay dividends to some drivers, and we've seen drivers who haven't opted to go out there on the warm-up getting a little bit caught out. Notably, I remember, Dara, earlier in the season, I think it was Hayden Miller who so timely took turn 4 around Portimao on the warm-up, exactly how we said you shouldn't do, and he spun on the crest, and then when the race came, he knew what to do. So it will definitely bode well for some of them to get out there and get a feel for their machines. However, there's only about 10 of them who've been out, so most of the field opting to remain in the pit lane. Get some fluids on board, perhaps a quick run to the toilet before we get underway.
Yeah, again, they might have done that. Drivers may have done that during their warm-up. It's 5 minutes that you don't necessarily really know what to do with. It's not a yet necessarily useful session in that you've just had a very long qualifying session where you probably did a couple of higher runs, maybe just go out on track to keep yourself fresh, but there isn't too much to be gained or lost by doing the session or not. It's just an extra couple of minutes to get yourself ready, and if you're starting at the front of the field, if you qualified better than you expected to, it can be a couple of minutes of worry because you don't necessarily know how the race is going to start. You start to overthink at the beginning of the race, but yeah, it all focuses into this moment when we start to grid up and then get into our formation lap.
Absolutely then, so let's run through the grid for the 6th round of the championship, and Sam Derbyshire, the man chasing the championship, 4 points, as we've said, behind Andrew Dawson coming into this one. He'll be pleased to start on the front row of the grid, taking pole with a time of a 1:33.300 for the Vulcan Motorsports Gold driver. He starts and shares the front row of the grid alongside a man who's also familiar with the front of the grid. Ignace Vinciszewski's a Vulcan Motorsports red, just over 3/100ths of a second away from pole. Andrew Fairley will start on the second row of the grid ahead of Czech Plug as well. He's yet to finish outside the top 4 this season, and I believe in his qualifying sessions so far, he's keeping up the pace, of course. He's been right there in the top 5 all season long, a consistent finisher and a consistent qualifier, which sees him third in the championship, ready to go again. Hayden Miller coming into this one off the back of his best result last season. The Vulcan Motorsports Gold driver 3/10 away from pole, ahead of sim coach Josh Benson, back in the support of championship leader Andrew Dawson. It'll be interesting to see how those guys start this race. Will there be some team orders? Will Dawson let himself get by a little bit early? We'll have to wait and see. Qualifying times, only half a tenth difference between the two of them. I'm sure in their Mercedes they'll be awfully similar at the start of this race. Lucas Diaz-Antoon starts ahead of Thomas Critchell and Lewis Kenyon, who round out the top 10 is Thomas Pugh, John Breitenbach, Luke Van Gortel and Jamie Foster, who start ahead of Alex Fretwell before we arrive at the pole sitting car, that McLaren of Samuel Clark for DXT Motorsports KMR. He starts ahead of Luke Bailey, who started on pole this time last week, and Grant Miller as well. Pedro Luis da Silva next, and it's Thiago Reisa inside the top 20. It's Toby Hardiak ahead of Scott Kostrick. Graham Vivers and Barry Wenman will start ahead of Danny Phillips in P25. Wesley Van Ren, Lewis Hammond, Josh Taylor, Marcel Breitenbach, Scott Kostrick, the top 30. Sarah Cadesla, Weir, Montaigne, Rhodes, Maymar and Mackay in the top 36, with Dennis Curler, Adam Waters, James Pallow and Liam Yarnasu, the top 40. As we get ready to go, Dara, it looks like it's going to be a very quick start indeed. Gap's quite big, and I don't think they're going to have time to bunch up before Mr. Derbyshire leads us away for the 6th round of the championship.
Yeah, and they're about to get going then. This is a really important race at a turning point in the season, and it's a good enough start, I think, from the front of the field to get towards turn number 1. The 3 Vulcans right at the front of the field. Is there going to be an overtake? Yes, there is. Oh, in the background, 3, 4 wide to turn number 2. Difficult to make himself through. Oh, is that Dawson around again? Oh, we had issues. Vince Rajewski's is around. That is one of the cars further down the order. But Ignace having a difficult start again. And yeah, a bad start all around at the front of the field if you're not Sam Derbyshire, because he's got away at the front of the field. Plurg and Miller can try and fight with him. Josh Benson up to the top 4 as well as they work their way through turn 5. Careful, the walls are so close through there. And goodness me, Thomas Critchell nearly running it into them. Inside line on Luke Van Gortel. That's a bit of a send if he can make it work, but he can't quite do it just there. Frantic off the launch. Many drivers getting away cleanly. It's just a disappointment for the likes of Ignace, who have dropped down the field early on.
Yeah, very, very true indeed. The man in first has remained the same. 7th, Andrew Dawson has remained the same. Lewis Kenyon has gained 4 places off the start, some of the best in the top 10. Jamie Foster up 6 places as well. A little bit of a gap here behind Luke Van Gortel, down there to Thomas Critchell, who's been passed around the outside by Jean Breitenbach in that Porsche. He's going to have to go the long way around if he wants to make that one stick. Does that Mustang have a problem? He's taken that very tight indeed, running it on the grass. I'm not sure if he's picked up some damage at some point early on there, but some unorthodox driving in the early stages there by Thomas Critchell. Pedro Luis da Silva has got himself up 2 places as well. He sits just behind Luke Bailey, who's busy chasing down Samuel Clark in the lead of the race. Grant Miller is that McLaren in behind, the red and gold one. He's got to try and get himself past Pedro to stay within touching distance of Bailey and of Clark ahead. Wesley Van Ren going side by side. He's got no front end as the number 99 attempts to get past him. It is the 99 of Van Ren, sorry, and it's Sarah Cadesla who's changed from the Ferrari into that Mustang. Sounds like there's damage behind, and there is. 2 cars off. Jordan Maymar, Andrew Muntian around at the exit of the walls of champions, and a Porsche with no eyes, apparently.
Yeah, it's horrible on that main straight as well to try and get yourself out of that collision. Thiago Reisa, who's got a black and orange flag, he's not going to let that out a whole lap, surely. Let's see it on board from the Brazilian. Well.
Yeah, no comment.
You wouldn't pass the driving test doing that, would you?
No, you absolutely would not. Anyway, good news for the Vulcan drivers at the front. They are clear and away. It's Derbyshire leading Plurg, leading Miller. Bad news for Vince Rajewski. We'll go back and see what happened to him in just a while. They've got Josh Benson and Lucas Diaz-Antunes in that Lamborghini chasing up behind them, of course. Don't be fooled by that livery on the Lamborghini. That is not a SimCoach car. It is a Darkwing racing car, as you can see by that rear wing. However, the livery, the red and black SimCoach, it wouldn't be hard for you to think that it was indeed a SimCoach livery. It's not. So it is SimCoach leading Darkwing, leading Vulcan Gold with Lewis Kenyon in that Corvette. Then it's championship leader Andrew Dawson as they all bound over the curb of through the wall of champions through that final chicane for the 2nd time. And Luke Van Gortel putting a little bit of pressure on the 176 of Jamie Foster. Is he going to dive up the inside? Yes, he is. Jamie looks to hang it around the outside, but Van Gortel laid on the stoppers. Is he going to be able to get the power down? Such a tricky place to make an overtake on the exit of turn 2, because you met once again with another corner, and Foster caught out there by the slow Lamborghini, which sends Van Gortel off the road. Drama all up and down the grid here in the opening stages. So far so good. Jamie Foster holds onto that place. It looks like he was going to lose it. I'm not sure who that Lamborghini is. Is that Tech Plur going slowly? I think it is, Dara. He's dropped down 3 places. I'm not quite sure what was happening to him there. He was going very slow, potentially a slowdown in the opening sector.
Yeah, very possibly, and not what you need this early on in the race as well, to be picking up slowdowns, because the closer you are to other cars, of course, the more detrimental they're going to be. Yes, if you pick one up later in the race, you'll lose probably about the same amount of time, but you may not find yourself stuck behind an extra car or 2. Luc Van Gortel, I think, serving that, dropping 2 places, and that's exactly what he was trying to avoid. I think he's running to Andrew fairly. No, there's 2 seconds between them. It's just my eyes. As we see Samuel Clark make his way through at the hairpin. Really interested to see kind of how Josh Benson goes about this. He is chasing after Derbyshire and Miller, because Derbyshire is the driver making a big push at the moment in the Drivers' Championship. Oh, well, there's your answer. Picking up an off-track, and he'll drop behind Lucas Diaz-Antun. So now it's going to be Lucas to have a go. Kenyon's gone through. Dawson's going to go through. Yeah, but he'll keep ahead of Season 8 champion Clerk. But well, I'm glad I started that point, Joe, because it's really paid off by the end.
It has. 2 cars getting through. Then we said, I mean, that's an unforced error really on Dawson, but he'd be pleased to have got through and passed his teammate. That saves an interesting conversation later on, and he's immediately setting off after the back of Lewis Kenyon, of course. He's been improving week after week, has Mr. Kenyon, doing well at the moment to be inside the top 4. Let's see how his pace goes in throughout the rest of this race. His best finish of the season came around Mugello with a P5, so if he can hang on to this one, he could bring home some very good points indeed. He's got championship leader behind him though. He'll know about that, and he'll want to do what he can to hold him off from Sam Derbyshire for as long as possible. Not the easiest place to overtake around here. Quite easy to get a run, not so easy to get the move done, of course. You can see taking a slightly defensive line initially, sees that, and that Mr. Dawson is not close enough to make that move, and comes back over to the left-hand side. An intriguing battle to keep our eyes on over the next few laps to see how Dawson handles this one with Lewis Kenyon. Can't say that these two will have had an awful lot to do with each other so far this season. Dawson's been mostly at the front. Kenyon's been around 5th, 6th, 7th. Let's see how they get on as they head toward the final chicane.
Yeah, and Andrew Dawson tracking his way through as he looks to try and make the move. Oh, big snap there for Lewis Kenyon. Here comes Andrew Dawson, outside line. He should be able to fly past on the inside line. Hayden Miller's at the fastest lap of the race. Dawson, can he control the line? Yes, he can. And through turn 1 he goes, or through turn 2 he goes, I guess. He is into P4. 2 spots in as many laps, and after the mistake from his teammate Josh Benson, he's now only about a second and a half off the podium.
Luc Van Gortel still putting pressure on Thomas Pugh this time around. It's a little bit different as he moves himself up and past that Mercedes with a scrape off the wall, though that's going to invite the Mercedes back into it. He's had to put the brakes on to avoid running into the back of that one. That might have allowed Andrew Fairley a little look up the inside, which he takes, and the room is afforded by the Axis Sim Sports 180, but he's not been able to get by. All these drivers now bringing up, all because of that mistake by Luc Van Gortel, who ironically has got himself up the road. He's got a good couple of car lengths between these three. Fretwell has now been invited again, and behind Fretwell in the back of the picture is our Premier Class leaders. Luke Bailey putting on the charge ahead of Samuel Clark. Pedro Luis da Silva still there as well. No positions gained for him over the last couple of laps. Luke Bailey doing what he needs to do at the moment, potentially fuel saving a little bit in the early stages, but he's right there with him, hunting him down for the lead.
Yep, and still we're in the very early stages of this race. Normally we see a couple of the drivers eke out a little bit of time to each other at this stage. We've seen a couple of races where they've stayed close, but this is a track where it's a nice balance really between parts where the slipstream is really important, and parts where it can kind of cause quite a bit of problem with dirty air. So at a circuit like the Red Bull Ring, you're going to see a lot of close racing because there's loads more slipstream than there is dirty air to worry about. Here, yes, you've got the back straight, you've got towards turn 1, but then the back end of the circuit through 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, it's difficult to stay right tucked up behind the car in front, and also it's difficult if you run too close to the back of them and just misjudge your line ever so slightly, you're going to find yourself eating some barriers, so you've got to be ever so careful. Hayden Miller, though, keeping a safe enough distance from his teammate Sam Derbyshire to not worry his Northern Irish teammate, but make sure that he's aware that Hayden Miller is in the picture. These two are starting to pull away a bit from the rest.
Yeah, I was just thinking there, Dara, I think this could be a different story to what we're used to seeing by Vulcan. When you've got 3 or 4 drivers all jostling for position toward the front of the order, it becomes difficult to manage. When you've got 2 drivers who are clearly very similarly matched, I think it's going to be quite easy. Sam Derbyshire in the championship fight, Hayden Miller in the fight for the top 5. I think at the moment Hayden can conserve fuel. He doesn't have to worry about his tyres too much. I think Sam Derbyshire will have the pace. At the moment, this is exactly what they will want to be doing, while the likes of Lucas Diaz-Antunes and Andrew Dawson are a good few seconds off the back of them. Best part of 4 seconds away from the leader already, approaching the 10-minute mark, 10 minutes past, should I say. So it's all going very well for these two at the moment. Different to what we've seen before, not having to worry about Dawson being right with you or having 3 or 4 of your own teammates around you. These two can focus on working together and keeping it nice and safe, getting the cars around the circuit, having a good pit stop. And I would like to think that, mistakes aside, it'll be a very good evening for these 2 drivers. Andrew Fairley up the inside again of Thomas Pugh. We saw that one, couldn't get it done. Just half a car's shy from getting himself alongside, affording the room. Little bit of a wobble there by the Mercedes on the exit of turn 2. Is that going to invite Fairley back in? No, it's not. He stays where he is for now, but I don't think, Dara, he's going to be comfortable sitting there for much longer.
Yeah, it's not a nice place to be. But let's see, Andrew Fairley. Oh, is it an inside line? It'd be very brave to go down the inside there, and I think Thomas Pugh knew that he wasn't really going to go for it. So he was able to take his racing line. If anything, it's just about Andrew Fairley offline to come onto this back straight, and he will lose a couple of extra tenths of where he maybe could have been to be right up behind Thomas Pugh. But I mean, still tracking around in P12, albeit only about 11.5 seconds off the lead. We've seen drivers like Sam Derbyshire actually back at Portimao, where difficulties on lap 1. Struggle to make your way back to the pack after being a long way down in terms of time. But Andrew Fairley isn't a million miles away. Yes, he's got 10 cars of himself and Sam Derbyshire in the lead, but there's only 11.5 seconds. So if you can start getting through a couple of them early on, maybe do something with the pit strategy that enables him to get through on another couple, then you could see him towards the top 5 by the end of the race easily.
Yeah, good fight going on here between the cars ahead, of course, from Dawson, trailing down to Luke Van Gortel as the 2 Porsches go over the curb. I think they both avoided the inside, the left-hand curb there, going through the final chicane. Maybe just wanting to conserve their energy a little bit, conserve the car, not too much risk at the moment. A good position for the pair of them. I was saying toward the head of the broadcast that Luke has been slowly improving his places as the season's gone on. A 5th, a 6th and a 6th after failing to get inside the top 10 in the opening 2 rounds, so he'll be happy to be inside the top 10 as things stand, and so close to the back of Jean Brayton back there. We heard the scrape of the right hand side of that Porsche. That's the kind of thing that Van Gortel will be hoping to see more of if he's going to get himself by, but we can see on the front of that 114 he's got a little bit of damage to the front of his machine, which probably won't be hampering him too much, but I'm sure he'd rather it wasn't that way. Gap's not so bad. Jamie Foster still within touching distance for the 172, but he's got to look in his mirrors more so than ahead, and Lucas Diaz-Antunes is around, and that's a horrible place to be. Let's go on board because the cars, okay, good, he had a nice gap to get himself out the way. Better to be over here and on the grass than anywhere else, but careful as Pedro Luis da Silva comes through. He's just going to have to sit and do a 10-point turn there, Dara, to try and get it around because he's got traffic coming for a long time.
Oh, it's just been a difficult moment. It's just not good to start the race.
It's not ideal.
Lucas Diaz-Antunes has done so at 12 minutes in and was going well, but it's almost like a running cycle now of who could be inside the top 3. Let's see it. Excuse me, one more time. Does he get too much curb? It just starts kicking around really quite late, actually, which is kind of a weird one. Surprised he couldn't hold it, but either way, the rear end stepped around on him more than he could handle, and the car is in a state that's a little bit worse for wear. He's right behind Lewis Hammond, and, well, that's not a pretty looking car either. So the two of them not having the best of the best of races at the moment, bouncing over those curbs. Careful, guys, as you don't want to damage the car even further. And Wizzy Van Ren inside line of Marcel Breakback, he gets that move done. That car's looking a little bit better.
It is looking very clean as well, I must say. Delivery there, nice red, nice blue, split down the middle, very clean. As we, I'm not sure if he's had that on before, Dara, but I will tell you, Marcel Breitenbach has had this livery on all season, and it's an absolute delight to look at. I'm not sure if I prefer his or Jean's, actually. I think I do prefer the lighter colours on the 172, but fingers crossed it doesn't get bumped and scraped, because Luc Van Goortel still all over the back of him. So, let's go. Do I go back? No, let's not go back just yet, because Van Goortel does look around the outside, gets his car alongside. Going to be tricky for him to get that move done there, but that will have slowed down Breitenbach's exit, and it looks like the pair of these two are side by side. It's going to be tricky. Van Goortel's got the pace, that's clear to see. A little bit of a touch there as he headed through the kink at turn 12. This is going to be our first clear side by side action going into the Wall of Champions, the final chicane. Breitenbach backs out. Doesn't fancy that one. Van Goortel's got through after all the pressure over the last 3 or 4 laps. He's got that job done. He can set his sights on Jamie Foster of SimCoach, who's the driver in that Corvette up ahead.
Yep, and let's see if he can start to try and reel him in over the next couple of minutes, couple of laps. Andrew Dawson doing a good job to reel in the top 2 by setting the fastest lap time of the race last time by. Good to see that we have those 2 leading battles. Yes, albeit in the elite class they are teammates, but in that Premier class with Clark and Bailey, there is less than half a second in it. Let's see, Josh Benson try and get back through on Lewis Kenyon. He's been, of course, trying to recover after the slowdown that he picked up that cost him 2 or 3 spots about, 10 minutes ago now. He's looking to try and get back through on one of the Vulcan cars. Lewis Kenyon, who it's fair to say is struggling a little bit to start this race. He's falling off the back of Plurg and Touch, who is himself falling away from his 2 teammates Derbyshire and Miller. And again, we're seeing Vulcan having incredible pacing qualifying, and almost a couple of the drivers having to hang on in the races, but it's worked so far this season.
In fairness, Benson qualified in the position that he currently finds himself in P6, whereas Lewis Kenyon has gained 5 places, probably off the melee that we saw at the start. So he is potentially a little bit of a cork in the bottle, so to speak, at the moment, and Benson will feel like he knows he's got the pace to get by. We'll soon see how that one happens, but as we said, this Kenyon will know that his teammates are doing well at the front. Doesn't need to push too much. He's just got to do his best to keep any of the SimCoach cars off, and there's a slowdown. He's done what he needed to do. He's put him off enough, and that's a mega slowdown, it looks like, through the Wall of Champions, through the final chicane by the Mercedes, and around the outside looks 1 but 2 cars, and he's going to be stranded, the 103, on the outside line as Andrew Fairley gets his foot to the floor. From bad to worse there. Very bad timing. Benson will fight that one back, but around the outside, not going to be able to on that occasion. Fairley is up. Benson now down 4 places, Dara, losing 4 places from that slowdown. Not what you like to see. All the while, as we said, Dawson up 4 places into the top 3, and Danny Weir has had another issue. Same place that we saw him going off in the warm-up. He's had another problem. Let's see if we can see what's gone on for the number 5. Here it is. Is it a mistake on his own through the wall? Oh, okay. Never mind. He's gone off the track a little bit earlier on, potentially. Let's see if we can find what Danny Weir has done. There. Goes off the track. Probably a simple issue. Has he had a helping round? Oh, that's a wheel disconnection if I have ever seen one. That is hard right by Danny's hardware. Let's watch that from the gyro. Let's see how that one happened.
Yeah, here he comes then towards turn 1.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah, that's a technology failure. I mean, it's too quick to even be a human intervention, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
It's so clear that he has just been shoved into the wall, and that's him. Well, he's out of the race, isn't he, really? All the way down in 17th now. He may come out, but he'll be laps down, and I mean, you can only hope to pick up a handful of points, if that. So it's not been a good even for Danny at all. He'll probably call it a day and then come watch the rest of the race with us. Adam Waters trying to fight away with Rob Mackay. Mackay making the move through there in his Mercedes car. Nice gaggle of cars back here, you know. Lewis Hammond at the front of it. Distinctive because he's not got a front end. He leads the train. Then you've got Shane Cotton, Rob Mackay, Adam Waters, and then I believe an elite driver. Is that Ignace? I believe it is Ignace.
Yes.
Not Ignace. I mean, he's in a battle for P10 well, P11 in the Premier class. That's just not where he thought he was going to be when he started this race.
A nice switch back by Mackay, who loses the place to the Aston Martin, but then he gets him around the outside, hangs onto it. This is what we've just seen. Thought we'd go back and see how we got that one done. A nice little, well, piece of defence really from the outside. A good way to defend your position. Gets Mercedes back in front of that damaged Aston, and then he has a little bump off the inside at 12 for good measure. Jamie Foster, he was right up there toward the front, I believe, Dara, and he has had an incident. Here he is. It doesn't look like he's got too much damage, going very slowly down toward the turn 10 hairpin. That's Toby Hardiak, championship leader in the Premier class, getting by on the inside. He's got Luke Bailey ahead of him, so there's now a 1-2-3 in the Premier class. Now that Pedro Luis da Silva has dropped out of the order, so we'll have to see what happened, see if we can find out what happened to Pedro. But let's quickly go back and see how Mr. Foster has dropped right down the order, in between Luc van Gortel and one of the Vulcan drivers. Oh, and did he have a helping around there, Dara?
We may have done miracle that he wasn't hit again. Let's see it one more time. Through we go. No, he doesn't. Luc van Gortel, I mean, he would have been very nervous there, because you could see in the back. Yeah, there we go. You can see the background. The second you have a half spin like that, and you're trying to get the car to correct itself, you're going to end up reversing a little bit onto the circuit. We'll see it here from Thomas Pugh. Difficulty for Luc van Gortel is he was hoping that wouldn't happen beforehand. Yeah, you can just see it in front, just trying to avoid, but you can never really know exactly when that snap is going to begin, and once it does, you can't really dive either way at that point. So lucky for most drivers to be able to avoid that, but really dangerous moment.
I'm wishing the best for these two at the moment doing battle. I hope they're aware that these are the kind of drivers who've been so consistent and who've been improving race after race after race, of course. As we've already said, Luc van Gortel coming off the back of his 3 best results of the season. The same can be said for Lewis Kenyon. He's had a very consistent start of the season, currently in 5th and 6th, but getting very close to one another. Not too much going on ahead, not too much going on behind. 5 seconds down to Josh Benson after that earlier slowdown. Fingers crossed that these two can have a clean and fair battle, because the last thing we want to see is one, if not both of them, going around, and Luc van Gortel maybe not heeding that message at all as he fills the mirrors of the Corvette. Never in his mind to make a move there, I don't think, going into the final chicane, but definitely trying to make that Corvette miss his braking point, of course. Van Gortel finishing 5th in the 3rd round. If he can get himself past Kenyon, he'll be in his joint best place of the season. But it's looking pretty feisty as the Porsche manages to get the power down, of course. The superior traction in that Porsche, of course, looking like it's proving to be very useful for the 114 at the moment. Great battle, but as I said, Dara, fingers crossed that they keep it clean, because they're both in a very, very good position.
Yep, they are, and they don't really want to be chucking it away. This early on as well, we've still got...
No.
I'll say this early on, we've had 20 minutes. They get close, don't they? As they make their way in towards turn number 7. But yeah, Van Gortel needs to be careful. They're in a good spot. Maybe they're thinking about Andrew Fairley. You wouldn't really be thinking about Andrew Fairley in this situation, but he's only a couple of cars back. Top 5 on the line, though. You don't really want to be overdriving the car. And if you're Luc van Gortel, you know, there's a chance here to just save a bit of fuel. Yes, you could feel like you're losing time to Plurg, but then you have to start thinking about how far up the field do you expect to be able to get in this race, and maybe sitting behind Lewis Kenyon could almost enable you to make that overtake in the pit stop strategy. So yeah, let's see how he plays this, but these two having a good race for their own respective championships.
Absolutely then, 20 minutes gone, 38 to go, pressure on by Luc van Gortel. Let's go back, Dara, right toward the start of the race. Let's see what happened to Mr. Vinciszewski's as he headed through the 1st and 2nd corners.
Yeah, let's have a look then. Ignace, it's been a torrid season for him, like it was last season in terms of races. Does he get a tap? He does get a tap from Andrew Fairley. We'll have to see that on board with Andrew, I think, because it's difficult to see from the overhead. How did Ignace come across? Let's see. As they make their way through turn 1, bit of a check-up, but he just get help, doesn't he? Andrew will say that he checked up. Ignace will say that well, he drove into the side of him, which you can see here. Let's see Andrew going a bit deep. Well, yeah. I mean, if you pick the bones out of that one, they'll both blame each other, I'm sure.
I know. Well, I hope it's not a continuation of last week, of course, because we saw Mr. Fairley, the recipient of some very minor contact going through the first chicane at Imola last week. And yeah, I mean, hey, I'm not going to point the finger, but it's ironic that it happens again in reverse, this time between the same two drivers. Didn't quite end the same way for Fairley as it did for Vinciszewski. He just drove on last week as though nothing happened. But yeah, not good to see for Vinciszewski's down the order once again in 14th, 47.5 seconds off the lead of the race. He will have hoped to probably be somewhere in between Dawson and Miller at the moment, not to be as it stands then. And Foster going slowly again. Looks like Hardiak is going to be able to get himself past. He might have to force the issue here because he does not want to lose touch of, does not want to lose touch of Luke Bailey. I think, has he been too kind perhaps there, Dara? I think he worries that he might have run into the back or the side of the Corvette, and he's nearly come to a stop at the apex there. That's not going to do himself any favours in defence of Scott Kostrick, who's in his mirrors now.
Yeah, and Scott may look to come through shortly. I mean, Toby Hardiak's had a good season so far, a couple of wins, and then a couple of, non-points finishes that have kind of kept him at, within reach for quite a few drivers. Is that a moment from... No, it's not Luke Bailey. Luke Bailey's just up in front. That is the 176 having an issue. That's Jamie Foster, who has a slowdown. That's why he's slowing down across the start-finish line. Kostrick, it goes through. But that kind of puts into perspective where the front of the Premier class is at the moment. They are running P11 overall. It's been a really good race so far for that Premier class. There's a bit of a bit more of a mix between those elites and the Premiers, but you made the noise, Joe. Luke Bailey really driving this car aggressively, isn't he?
He is. The Mercedes is such a fun car to drive, but you've got to almost drive it slower than you want to in order to get the most out of it. It's not, at least in my opinion, it doesn't feel like the kind of car that you want to push to its absolute limits in order to get the best out of it. We've heard from Dawson, of course, who's doing so well in the championship in the Mercedes. There's another mistake by Luke, sadly. It seems like he's definitely overdriving that one at the moment. But Dawson was saying, he was sort of driving. In fact, he wasn't saying this, Dara. He was saying this to us. He was comparing with Matt Hoyland and himself in our server, saying, when Matt left the Mercedes and moved into the Mustang, he was kind of joking with Andrew, saying, how are you leading the championship in that car? Because Hoyland just couldn't get the most out of it. And Dawson's response was, I've really just been driving at 80-90% all the time. And in the end, in the long run, over a 1 hour race, that's how you get the most optimized race time. There's no good pushing the car lap after lap after lap, because eventually it'll run out of grip, you'll run out of patience, and you're likely to make a mistake. But if you just drop off yourself a little bit, bring yourself in, reel that pace in just ever so slightly over the longevity of a race, it will pay dividends, and it will help you finish in a much quicker time. So yeah, think about that one, Luke, as you're driving, because you're doing very well at the moment, but you don't want to overdrive it, because he's now got Toby Hardiak all up in his mirrors. He's got away from Scott Kostrick, Pedro Louis da Silva and Jamie Foster no longer really in this picture. It looks like we're going to have a clean scrap, hopefully to the finish, between the top 3, maybe even the top 4 in the Premier class, if Grant Miller can get up on the back of this one.
Yeah, that's really what we want to be seeing here, isn't it? Particularly at this point in the championship, you want to see more drivers getting themselves involved. Lewis Hammond with that horrific-looking car, getting himself involved with Rob. It almost looks as something from 2014 F1, doesn't it? With the horrific nose shape, but there you go. Lewis Hammond losing the position in the end to Rob Mackay. The Mercedes slips its way through. These guys running a minute off the overall race lead. They are likely to be lapped at this rate in about 15 minutes or so. Probably when we expect to see quite a few pit stops unfold over the course of this race. We probably won't see too many in early at a track like this, but you never do know what the strategy is going to say. If you're Hayden Miller, you might have to try something, because you're dropping 3 seconds off the back of your teammate who's in the race.
Not sure why I find it so funny, Dara, but the sight of both of these cars with a very similar missing body part is quite funny. It's almost like they're driving next to each other out of sympathy. They've come across each other on the track. They've gone, hang on a minute, you've got the same damage as me. Let's have our own little race, because we can't compete with everybody else in a straight line. Let's compete with each other and see if we can make a good race out of it. That's Adam Waters and Lewis Hammond. I nearly did it, Dara. Nearly did it, but I stopped myself. Lewis Hammond and Adam Waters down there in P28 and P29 overall. That is 14th and 13th in the Premier class.
Been hanging there for weeks, isn't it? We've all avoided it so far, but yeah. Marcel,
there we go. In the pit lane.
was defending. There's Lewis Hammond coming into the pit lane. I presume for his one and only pit stop, but before half distance. So I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to make sure that he can get home on a fuel tank, but also maybe fix the damage as well. There's the front end on the car. Looks a lot nicer for that McLaren. They're very different. There you go, McLaren. And he will emerge into the circuit a long way down, but he will be in range, I think, of the others when they make their pit stop. You're thinking about 10 minutes time.
Scott Kostrick putting a little bit of pressure on Toby Hardiak. Let's focus on Scott for a while because we haven't seen too much of him so far this season. He's gone about his results quite quietly but quite tidily. Started with a P2 in the opening round. Since then he's had a 4th, a 6th. He missed the 4th round, and then this time last week around Imola got himself in 4th again. That sees him 2nd in the overall Premier Division standing, 76 points away from the man that he is chasing now, the 31 of Toby Hardiak, of course. Hasn't failed to finish on the podium in every race that he has finished, but sadly for him, around Mugello, he had that disconnection, failing to score points on that occasion, which stinted his progress ever so slightly, but he's continuing that run of form as it stands. Samuel Clark beginning just to open up like a little bit of a gap at the front now. Grant Miller, as we said earlier, just setting a purple lap time in his class. He's lighting the timing tower up as it stands. Let's see if he can close that 4-second gap to get on the back of this pack, but the longer that these guys do battle, that'll make it much easier for the Scotsman in his McLaren to get back in touching distance with these guys. Good news for Clark, he's got a little bit of breathing room. He'll be happy to see in his mirrors and of course in his relatives that Bailey, Hardiak and Kostrick are getting awfully close to one another, and I'm sure we're going to see some battles going on very shortly. Fingers crossed the pit stops don't get in the way of that, but that could also change the order in a flash.
Yep, and it's pretty easy to say that pit stops here are going to be consequential. Ooh, slow down for Sam Derbyshire at the front of the field. He was leading by 5 seconds. Hayden Miller is now in P... am I having a brain fade, or did we not see that? It also needs P2.
Yes, we did.
Sam Derbyshire, yeah, I'm sorry. Sam Derbyshire then picking up that slowdown. Must have been through the final couple of corners based on where they are on the circuit. Let's see. This is what happened on pit exit. So that's Lewis Hammond just in behind. There's the 194. What
Slow
happened?
down.
Slow moving Vulcan. Yeah, there it is. There's the slowdown. There we go. That's the easiest way to make a move, and I don't think we're going to be seeing, hearing too many happy words coming out of Hayden Miller right now. But Sam Derbyshire now falling back towards Andrew Dawson, and he's just plucking them off at the moment, isn't he?
He absolutely is. Let me just find him. There he is. Yeah, doing well at the moment. Plucking them off is Dawson. Vinchezewski's is doing well as well. He's got that green and black BMW of Graham Beavers ahead of him. Looking to tuck that in nicely and get the move done there. Graham nicely out the way of a driver he knows has a lot of pace. That's Vinchezewski's up one more position, but not in class. He has to get past Wesley Van Ren, who is a good few seconds up the road, and then he's got Pedro Luis da Silva in the elite class to do battle with. Let's take a look at the track map, see how it's getting on then. Lots of clean space going down toward, I think, is that the start finish? No, it's not. It's the run in toward the Wall of Champions there. The 166 heading through there now. Sam Derbyshire, your race leader, as he heads down toward the start finish straight. But yeah, good spacing, I think, for some of these drivers. If you're the number 8 there, you'd love to maybe have a little bit more action around you with that good cluster of elite cars doing well at the moment. Vinchezewski is slowly making up some more positions, and Jamie Foster making a bit of a nuisance of himself here in between the leaders for the Premier class.
Yep, let's see if he's going to get out of the way or whether he will keep himself firmly in the mix as Foster looks to try and get himself away. Careful then in towards turn or the final couple of corners. Hardiak comes into the pit lane, so he has jumped the gun here a little bit earlier than the rest. Is this going to pay dividends to get out of that train, maybe put himself into some clean air, or is it going to prove to be a bit of an error? We'll have to wait and see. Wesley Van Ren has followed his countryman Toby Hardiak into the pit lane as well. That allows Bailey, Kostrick and Samuel Clark to kind of get on with it with Jamie Foster in the mix. So intriguing little period of about 5 minutes in this race, because this can really change things around. Toby Hardiak could be second. He could also be 5th or 6th.
Yeah, I wonder if Toby had the plan to go into the pit lane there, because it seemed as though, as we saw Jamie Foster making it difficult for Bailey, he sort of had to back out on the inside line, didn't want to commit to much, and then we saw Toby Hardiak diving into the pit lane. Chances are it was a planned stop, but I wonder if the time gained by Hardiak there, just that half a second on the run down toward the final chicane, helped him make up his mind in deciding to go into the pit lane. But let's see how Luke Bailey goes on this lap. He's got a car right behind him by the sounds of him. Yes, he does. That's Pedro Luis da Silva. Vinchezewski's is now cleared of the... Who was it that was in front of him before? I'm not too sure. We had one other Premier driver that was in the way before he got on the back of the elite drivers, and that has now been cleared. Let's ride on with the leaders then and see if either any of Clark, Kostrick or Bailey come into the pit lane, or if they're going to go around one more time. Van Gortel, Fairley, Pugh and Fretwell in the pit lane inside the top 10 in the elite class.
Yep, let's see Samuel Clark come into the pit lane then, as he will be followed by Kostrick and Bailey. So the rest of that group of cars at the front of the field have all come in. Hardiek is 41.5 seconds behind as they make their way into the pit lane. Keep an eye on that delta time as he makes his way around the final few corners of the lap and down that back straight to see if he can gain any time on the rest, or whether they will be able to gain. He gained 2 tenths alone on Samuel Clark through that hairpin. So it's looking pretty good for Hardiek if he can make up some time in the final couple of corners as well. There was a bit of a melee when he came into the pit lane. The others were having a bit of a melee in towards the final chicane, so he's able to serenely move through it in a way that the others were not able to. Keep it out of the wall, nicely done. Where did he come out? Samuel Clark already listed as on pit exit, as is Kostrick, as is Luke Bailey, and we all know that it's easier to get out of the pit lane than it is to drive around turn 1 and turn 2. Bailey then, he's going to come up with a black flag, mind you. There's Hardiek behind. So he's lost out time. Like I said, he could have been second, could have been fifth, and there he is in the end dropping down to fifth, but he'll have warmer tyres on the kart. Let's see if that makes much of a difference, but that black flag is not going to help Luke Bailey at all.
No, that'll be a drive-through, I think, for Luke Bailey, potentially even a stop and hold. It could be a 40-second stop and hold. It sounds like he's sped in the pit lane. If I had to make a guess, maybe he took off the pit limiter a little bit too early. That's just an assumption, however. Let's see what the punishment is for the number 18. He'll have to serve that. If it is a drive-through, he'll have to serve that within the next 3 racing laps. Then Andrew Dawson into the pit lane, one of the last drivers in the elite class to do so. Jamie Foster, his teammate, follows him in ahead of Pedro Luis da Silva. Vinciszewski's is probably going to gain quite a few places off of this one, because I think he's already been in the pit lane once before. No, he hasn't. Vinciszewski's comes in now. He will be the last of the elite drivers to get in. Luke Van Gortel and Andrew Fairley making their way across the start-finish line now. Let's keep our eyes on Luke Bailey, Dara, because he is probably, sadly for him, going to drop right down the order, which will allow Barry Wenman. Is that a genuine position for Barry Wenman? He's come out of nowhere, and he's now competing and pushing for Scott Kostrick in second place.
And that's what a difference in pit strategy can do for you. There goes Luke Bailey into the pit lane to serve that drive-through penalty. I'm combining words like no tomorrow today. But there he is, dropping down the order behind Van Ren, behind Vavers as well, a little bit behind Brayton back. Oh, he's a stop and hold, so he'll probably be behind Tessa Rhodes as well. Oh, and Luke Bailey, I mean, that's gutting for him. Really good position coming into this race. Really good qualifying session. It's just not going to come together. Ignaz Vinciszewski's fighting over with Thomas Critchell. Neither of these drivers, I don't think, expected to be down here at this stage. Inside for Critchell. That'll serve him well. Ignaz missed a match on the circuit, but that's all can really be said for that racing line. He will stay in P15. I mean, he's only, well, he was about to be 10 seconds off of being lapped because Derbyshire was about to come around, but they've all come into the pit lane. Everybody come into the pit lane. Derbyshire, Plurg, Miller, Kenyon, Benson. What can Andrew Dawson do? Was P2, remember? Can he maybe jump Sam Derbyshire here with 23 minutes to go?
I think he was a good few seconds off the back of him, potentially maybe even 3 seconds behind Sam Derbyshire. There he is in the front of the picture there, the Corvette, making his way out. So he's not going to be ahead of Sam Derbyshire. The 166 gets himself going again with a nice tidy gap, and Hayden Miller has reclaimed that place, and then here comes Dawson, so he's got to do it all over again. Miller has managed to recoup and recover the time lost in that Sector 1 slowdown, and the 194 has got his hands full again. He's got to get up to the back of that Corvette, then get himself past, and then he can maybe start thinking about Sam Derbyshire. 3.7 seconds, the gap to first. It's not something that he hasn't overcome before, but as the time ticks down, 22.5 minutes to go, it's becoming increasingly difficult for the championship leader. He won't mind because the points are still very good in third, but he will know that it'll be enough for Sam Derbyshire to take the lead of the championship heading into the final 4 rounds of it. But after everything that's happened so far this race, Dara, I think to have the lead 3 inside 4 seconds is very commendable between the 3 of them.
Yeah, and it just goes to show how competitive this series has become, doesn't it, really, as we get towards the second half of the season. still so much competition, still so many drivers that are fighting for podiums, for wins, and that's exactly what we want to be seeing. There's only 22 minutes in this race left as well. I mean, you get the first 5-10 minutes that feel like they go really slowly with the amount of action that we have, and then the rest of the race feels like it races through, at least in the pit stop phase, as drivers try and position themselves. And that can be difficult to judge as a driver. You know, you spend those first 5-10 minutes really frantically trying to position yourself, and then once you get into that rhythm, time can almost evaporate, and it's how you can approach that and how you can work around that whilst also making progress in the race that separates some of the best drivers, well, separates them away from the rest. But it then means that when you've got drivers somewhat managing, somewhat watching what they're doing, and not necessarily going flat out, you get these closer battles towards the ends of races, and you have more drivers in and around the big points picture when you get towards those final 15-20 minutes of a race, which is where we are now. The likes of Josh Benson, he's had an up and down race, but the fact that it's an hour long means that he's still got 20 minutes to try and maybe recover himself to at least the top 7. Van Gortel and Fairley not a million miles away either. So yeah, the ebbs and flows of a 1 hour race, it's with the sun setting, with a championship that's relatively long but not long enough that you can have too many hiccups, means that it's great that we see so many close races.
It is Grant Miller getting himself out the way of Vinciszewski's nicely as he gets himself up the inside at turn 1. Takes another position, got to get up past Toby Hardiak next, then he's on the back of P13. I wanted to say that Luke Van Gortel has withstood that pressure from Lewis Kenyon. It must be a mistake, maybe something in the pit stops to talk about, because that gap was a lot closer a little bit earlier on. Kenyon now has to deal with Josh Benson in behind for this is a battle for P7 that will potentially leave Kenyon in 8th, all the while Luke Van Gortel on the back of Andrew Fairley trying to match his best result of the season. Fairley down 2 places off the start, the Porsche in behind him up 7, so it's a very different set of drivers that we have doing battle here in the closing stages, one with a much better qualifying and a worse race start, and the other with a worse qualifying but the beneficiary of some of the incidents in the opening round then. So it's the 114 but trailing the 146 Mustang versus Porsche. This will be a good battle because Van Gortel is chasing his joint best result of the season, while Fairley is trying to recover from the earlier incident at the start of the race.
Yeah, and he's done a good job, hasn't he, Andrew Fairley, over the course of the race so far in that Mustang, because, well, he was running at about P15, wasn't he? But he's worked his way back through. Yeah, he's lost a couple of seconds, but you're always going to do that through traffic. And now he's put himself into clean air, and he's given himself, 20 minutes when he made the move, 20 minutes to gain 10 seconds. That is a tall order, particularly against a former champion of the series, but he's given himself the best possible chance to get after the top 4. And I said at the start of the race, he could maybe look at the top 5 if he plays this well, and he's played it absolutely perfectly. And after 2/3 of the race only, he's already into the top 5. It's just going to be difficult to push on, you'd say, from here.
So a minute then separates the top 20 in class. Interestingly, having started this race with, I believe it was the top 4 in the Premier class side by side, we now have Clark leading De Silva in the elite class, Kostrick leading Antunes in the elite class, and then Hardiak leading Vinciszewski's in the elite class. So all 3 of those Premier drivers have another car to contend with before they're able to look at any more or any less points. If you're Samuel Clark, you'll be very pleased being in that position. If you're Scott Kostrick and Toby Hardiak, probably less so. Admittedly though, they'll be pleased to bring home some good points. But Samuel Clark hasn't had a podium so far this season, but he's improved. He's gone from 5th to 4th, and as it stands, 1st over the last 3 weeks. So if he can bring that one home, it will be a very good result for him indeed. Hopefully he'll come and join us in the interview booth. It will be great to speak to him for the first time, but he's still got 18 minutes of driving to do first before he brings home those points. Fingers crossed for him that he keeps it together and converts maximum points for himself. And of course, the DXT came out tonight. I'm not sure which team Danny Weir drives for, but him being out of that one, he's definitely a DXT. Let me see, actually, if I just go ahead, let's take a look at the multi-class, and Danny Weir is driving for the Zemix team, so it will be a difference of points in the team's championship, but nonetheless brilliant for the number 55 McLaren. It looks like Scott Kostrick and Jamie Foster has had an issue. Oh, and he's having to find the right moment to get that round as cars are going to come steaming round there. He thought better of it, and he's reset back to the pit lane. That is a SimCoach driver out in the final 17 minutes.
Yeah, and again, not long to go really. Making mistakes at this stage isn't good at all. I guess, you know, races generally 40, 45 minutes, so you could say maybe concentration is starting to wane as this is an ever so slightly longer race than drivers will maybe regularly do, and a GT3 stint's about that 50-minute mark, maybe pushing towards the hour. But so you could be starting to lose a little bit of concentration, but it's not really that much of an excuse when you're when you've only got such little time left in the race, and it's not like this is an endurance race by any stretch of the imagination. Ignace, can he try and get himself back up towards the top 10? Well, he's 18 seconds behind Alex Brackwell. Very difficult to see him get that far. Only a few seconds behind Lucas Diaz Antunes in a fellow Lamborghini. Both of those drivers running inside the top 5 in the first 2 minutes of the race now find themselves outside the top 10. And yeah, another example of Ignace not being able to deliver the points that he has put himself in position to gain in the qualifying session. Pedro Luis da Silva, that's a second and a half. Where on earth did that Premier driver go? I've never seen a wide line from Samuel Clark. I think he panicked there and dove out of it because he's not letting anything take this win away from him.
No.
That was crazy wide line.
Absolutely right, Dara. That's exactly what he did. Let's go back and take a look at that one. He definitely saw that late lunge by the 155 and thought, you know what, no risk. Let's get right out of the way. He's let him go, hasn't turned in until the next postcode, and then eventually got himself back on the racing line. That's the smartest thing to do, Dara. There's no good putting your pride ahead of your finishing position. There's no reason for Samuel Clark to finish in front of Pedro Luis da Silva. Pedro put it on a plate, told him what he was going to do, and he acted appropriately and has held his advantage and, more importantly, avoided any contact with what was quite a late lunge, let's be honest, by the McLaren, but clear in his intentions, and got that one done. And now the Portuguese man can get himself up and ahead. He's got a big gap ahead of him to try and chase after the next position, but at least for Samuel, done exactly what he needed to do. He's got another Lamborghini behind the 142 of Lucas Diaz Antunes. Let's see if he behaves in a similar way by the end of the race. And just in the back of your picture there is Scott Kostrick chasing him down in P2. 2.5 seconds to go into the final, 2.5 seconds gap into the final 15 minutes. Yeah,
not the biggest of gaps. And if Samuel Clark is going to be driving cautiously, then we might see Kostrick rock up to the back of him shortly. And if they start to battle, what can Toby Hardiak do? Oh, car on the wall. Not sure who that is from that distance. The lights don't really help because it means that we can't see the front of the car, but that is somebody off and into the barrier. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Always the man for the camera work. You can always trust that Joe will get an incident within 10 seconds, whether you've seen it or not. And so Danny Phillips is the one that has gone around. Only just about a lap down in the 191, but he's had a bit of a difficult evening. To be a lap down, something's got to have gone relatively majorly wrong. You look at Ignace Wyszynski, he went around at, turn 1, was at the back of the field, and he's only just about half a lap down. So it really does have to have a lot of things to go wrong to be a lap down. So it's not been a good evening for Danny. Here is Lucas Diaz Antunes right on the back of Pedro Luis da Silva.
Samuel Clark.
Oh, sorry, yeah, that's Samuel Clark. Who actually, there we go, that was the confusing thing. Pedro Luis da Silva is the 155, and Samuel Clark is just the 55. Is Lucas going to go on the inside? Is Samuel Clark going to let him go? Well, that wasn't really committal, was it?
No, I'm just not a fan. I've been in this position before, and it's just the worst feeling because you've got to. It's almost better if Lucas just does it, just force the issue. Clark's proved already that he's going to get out the way. He's got no issue in letting these guys pass, and being half committed like that doesn't quite help the driver in front to commit to that turn in. He won't be committed here, of course, as the brake lights, as the brake ducts light up there in the darkness. But the Lamborghini, surely now, Dara, is going to make that move into turn 1, make it easy for Samuel Clark, make it predictable, and fingers crossed he's not going to have to look in his mirrors for another lap. Sadly, it looks like he is.
Yeah, he will do. And all the while, I was going to say Kostrick is gaining on him, but he actually lost 8/10 that lap. Toby Hardiak's at the fast lap of the race, by the way, in P3 in that Premier class. Oh no, Samuel Clark, what's happened to him? Oh no, he's in the wall. Oh, was there contact? It feels like there might have been. It also feels like he may have kicked himself around. It can happen at that corner, just as we went off of him through turn 2. Does he get a helping?
Oh,
he doesn't.
honestly.
Oh, and Lucas, yeah. He's off the Christmas card list as the Swiss driver.
Yes, he absolutely is. That is an understatement, and it's getting busy for the 2 race leaders. Hayden Miller putting pressure nearly 4 wide with the McLaren and the Aston Martin on the inside there, and Hayden Miller takes the lead of the race off championship hopeful Sam Derbyshire, and Derbyshire nearly puts it back down the inside there. I don't think that was part of the script, to be honest. Those two have been cruising at the front of the order. They managed to extend the gap to Dawson, but in that melee, he's back within a second, and now those two have got to sort themselves out and not allow Dawson to get involved, because he is not going to hesitate if he can try and get past them. Sadly, to move on from Samuel Clark so quickly, we will come back to that, because that is awful for him. Still a podium, but all of a sudden, a race, a change of the lead in both classes at the same time, and that invites the championship leader straight back into it.
Yep, and he's on the tail immediately as well, isn't he? That is not really what I think. Anybody at Vulcan wants to see. Dawson all of a sudden there. He is on the case. Toby Hardiak as well on the case in that Premier class. Now with Samuel Clark dropping down to P3, it means that the man who's at the fastest lap of the race last time by, who has just gone a full second faster than Scott Kostrick, is now on the tail of the McLaren, and we could see the Dutchman go for yet another win here in Canada this time by. So that's only 6/10 of a gap at the front of the field. Then you've obviously got that elite class. I mean, Samuel Clark will be driving angry. He's not really going to feel like he's got anything to lose at this point. He was driving scared for the win. He won't be driving scared to hold on to the podium. Can he maybe try and gain some of those 4 seconds back to make it a 3-car fight at the front? We've got 10 minutes to go. This really feels like it's going to come down to the wire in both classes.
Yeah, I think Grant Miller will be the optimistic one in that group. I think Samuel might be a little bit optimistic to try and hunt down those 4 seconds. He's got to remember, of course, that he's had improved results every week so far this season. A 9th, an 8th, a 5th, a 4th, and now he's on for a 3rd. He'll be devastated, of course, to have had contact that wasn't his fault outside of class, with again a driver that probably should have just got the move done earlier instead of in a traction zone where you might find someone who's, you know, cautiously trying to bring that car home for their first win. Might be a little bit slower on the exit. It's a horrible thing to see. We've all done it, and we've all had it done to us as well, but it's not nice to see. So I think Samuel's best bet now is to focus on Miller in behind him, try and keep it consistent, bring home his first podium. It'll still be good points. It'll still do him on the championship. Toby Hardiak, however, the complete opposite. All out. What's that thing that Max said? Full push. No risk, full push. That'll be Toby Hardiak's mindset at the moment as he looks to chase down Scott Kostrick. First in the championship, trailing second in the championship. Let's see if it stays how it is or if these positions get inverted. Half a second between them. Another quick lap there by Hardiak with just under 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, not a long time really to sort this all out in the grand scheme of things. We're lapping just over that 90-second mark, so we've only got about 6 laps to go on conclusion of this one, which means we are really running it down to the final stages here. Toby Hardiak's not going to find himself with too many overtaking opportunities left to go in this race, so we'll have to take advantage of them when he can. So 9 minutes to go, so if it was 1 minute 30 exactly, we'd have 6 laps to go, but the lap time there, 1:34. So yeah, 6 to go here in Canada. Miller, Derbyshire, Dawson, even Plurg, 3 seconds between the top 4. It's all going to come to a head in the final few minutes.
This is what happened then, the two drivers squabbling ahead, and it's allowed Hayden Miller the perfect run. You can see there, Sam Derbyshire had to get out of it, had to move offline, and Hayden Miller got the run of all runs there. Sadly for him, on his teammate, but it's one way to get past. And actually, Dara, I've spoke too soon, because Derbyshire now leads ahead of Miller, and Dawson is right on the gearbox of that Corvette.
Yeah, and it's trying again, and these two clearly having a bit of a tussle. I wonder how that was conducted, that overtake, whether there was words had between them beforehand or whether this is just an overtake by Sam Derbyshire. But Andrew Dawson now is just kind of seeing the teammates squabbling and tripping over each other, and he's smelling blood in the water. We've seen more than once over the course of the season teammates at the front of the field in elite class, not just Vulcan, trip over each other, come to blows, and it really is their undoing in a race like this. And Andrew Dawson knows that. He will remember that, and he is going to be the one looking to move forward. He's been by far the most solid driver over the course of this race. He's moved right the way through the field in front.
Yeah, and let's not forget that the difference in points between first and third is 20 overall. So 100 for the win, 90 for a P2, 80 for a P3. So I think with Derbyshire seeing Dawson gaining on them in the mirrors, they might have said, listen, it's second is still a great result for Hayden Miller, still a great result for the team, but that 20-point difference, given that they've got 3 or 4 car lengths between them at most, is a huge difference between these two drivers. So it's now Hayden's job to stay where he is, keep Dawson behind him, and then now Derbyshire to bring home yet another race victory. Now I don't want to miss it again, but we can go back and just see very quickly if that was a move that was coordinated, or was it done, well, artificially. Yeah, coordinated. Yes, it was a coordinated move by the two at the front to allow Derbyshire back into the lead, and I think that's probably the right thing to do with eyes on the championship.
Yep. And again, you have to be starting to drive at this stage of the season with eyes on that championship, because we're on the downhill section. 5 rounds gone. This is the 6th, and there's only going to be 4 more to go afterwards. So you're going to have to start thinking with that spreadsheet in mind, not just in terms of trying to go flat out for the glory and every single win. You've got to be smart about it. Dawson, one of the drivers that will have all of that information locked in the back of his mind, and that'll help him or help his approach as we get in towards the final few laps of this one. Plurg has approached these 3 as well. I mentioned he was 3 seconds away. He's now only 2.1 seconds off the back in that Lamborghini, and he's arriving as well. When they cross the line, there's only 4 laps to go, but this is going to come right down to the wire. 3 Vulcans in a sim coach car, but the Vulcans don't look like they're playing nicely.
It's another slow Mercedes there. Is that, I'm not sure who it is. There's number 17. Is that Rob Mackay, potentially? Yes, it is Rob Mackay. Just not getting in the way. He did what he had to do, but that's definitely slowed down Sam Derbyshire on the exit. And Dawson there nearly forcing the issue and forcing that Corvette into a spin, but Hayden Miller's managed to keep it in a straight line as things stand. And as you said, Dara, a number of laps to go. Just 3 or 4 laps left for them as we approach the final 5 minutes, and Dawson leaving absolutely nothing out there on the table. 2 Corvettes in the Vulcan colours, leading that 194 Mercedes all the way to the line. This is exactly what we want to see around a circuit, of course, which has so much risk. One mistake, one snag of the brakes, and you're in the wall. And it's in these high pressure situations that the real quality drivers stand out. So far so good for Derbyshire, but so far so good for Dawson, of course, who's up 4 places from the start, well within a chance of a race victory if things were to go wrong ahead. Looks as though Derbyshire might have got things under control now. There's a bit of a bigger gap down toward Hayden Miller, who I know will not be putting him under any more pressure for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult position to be playing, isn't it, if you're Hayden Miller? Because Andrew Dawson is right there, and he's not going to be pulling any bunches. Hayden Miller almost has to be the intermediary face, whilst also sitting on the tail of Sam Derbyshire. It's such a difficult job to have to try and execute. Toby Hardiek, who we've just flicked to now, is dropping off the back of Scott Kostrick. It's looking pretty good for the number 10 at the moment. Samuel Clark's not really arriving either, so whilst it's getting closer in the elite class, it's gapping out a bit more in the Premier class. And talking about getting closer, Plurg is now within a second of Andrew Dawson. He's within 8/10 of Andrew Dawson, went 2 tenths faster, and was the fastest of the front 4 last time by. 3 laps to go. Knowing this series, Joe, they're going to stay in exactly the same positions, but it feels like they won't, right?
Yeah, let's see. I think Toby Hardiek may have had a slowdown there coming through, I think it was the first sector, out of turn 2 or 3. That might be why he's just dropped off the back, because he's now 4 seconds off Scott Kostrick. So that should all but seal the deal for him. Samuel Clark has maintained that gap and dropped Grant Miller in that second McLaren, so he's clear as well. And really, at the moment, it's Chubby Hardiek hoping that he doesn't get any more off tracks, any more slowdowns, because that might invite Samuel Clark back into this one. But the good news is, Dara, we have absolutely nowhere else to be apart from on the front row of this battle. We've got Plurg, who's almost right back in it as well. The issue being, of course, when you've got so many drivers fighting in the same or at least similar teams, it becomes a little bit difficult. It's easy for Dawson because he's just got to drive as fast and as aggressive as he can, as clean, as consistent as he can over the next 3 minutes, and what will be for the sim coach driver. But the rest of them have to be careful not to run into the back of one another and not to get tangled up as we've seen them do already. So it's all well and good having many competitive drivers in the same team, but sooner or later it comes to bite you, and hopefully that doesn't happen on this occasion. But to have the top 4 less than a second away from one another after 57 minutes of racing tonight is super impressive, and it's something we've seen time and time again in this series. Not quite this close, but obviously Zandvoort springs to mind. That was a very competitive session, and we're here for another one. Final 2.5 minutes then. You might be right, Dara. It might end up how it is. Jack Plurg setting another personal best, another session best, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult stage of the race to have to manage, as it has been all the way up to this point, but it gets worse and worse with every passing lap, of course. Plug then right on the tail. The front four in the elite class. I know we've had a couple of close finishes, but I don't quite think we've had the top four this close so far this season. Fantastic to see. Andrew Fairley, I mean, P5 really is best of the rest at this point in the race, because these four have been in a class above. But is there anybody going to be able to make the move? 1 lap to go. The white flag will fly when they cross the start-finish line, this time by Hayden Miller, 2 tenths behind his teammate. A plug to the outside line on Dawson. Is there a little bit of contact? I think that there was, but there isn't any exit the Belgian driver can really get to try and overhaul Andrew Dawson. Sorry, the Dutch, not the Belgian driver, the Dutch driver to overhaul Andrew Dawson. But my word, he's now lost a bit of slipstream. Is that going to affect him? Well, Hayden Miller's dropped back a little bit as well. Oh, this is going to be a frantic battle to the end. There's going to be a send, surely, somewhere.
Yeah, I do not want to leave this. I think Czech Plug has the best seat in the house as he whacks his Lamborghini over that curb. I'm surprised that's on a slowdown, because all 4 wheels were very close to the inside there. Someone is flashing the headlights. I'm not sure if that's Plug potentially warning that slow-moving car on the inside, that McLaren. But we do not want to cut away from this, because this is it. This is everything that we've got on the table. Toby Hardiak, 5 seconds off the back of Kostrick in the Premier class. Nothing giving there. We might see Samuel Clark coming into it on this final lap. Is it the final lap now, Dara? I think it will be, right? When we cross the line, less than a minute and a half on the clock. So it's now or never for these drivers. Derbyshire leading Miller, leading Dawson and Plug, who's brought himself right back into it. What a finish we're about to have here.
Yeah, only about half a lap left to go when they get back towards the start-finish straight. Barney will be flying that checkered flag. Lights are very much on as the sun has firmly set here in Canada. Sam Derbyshire has been clinging on to that leading position. Hayden Miller playing rear gunner, it feels like, for the last few minutes. Oh, big hit into the wall, though. Is that going to compromise his line? Andrew Dawson is only a couple of tenths behind. Is he going to be able to make the move? No, not really, because Plug is the one attacking Andrew Dawson. Really defensive line from Dawson to the inside of the hairpin. He's gone deep. Up the inside comes Plug. He's going to make the move. What a move that is from the season champion. And in the final real heavy braking zone of the race, he's got it into P3. Can Dawson respond? He's got 1 corner, 1 braking zone to do so.
Let's see what happens then. Those 2 ahead are absolutely cleared them in that need for a defence. Dawson really forcing the issue. An incredibly tight line there by Czech Plug, and Dawson is going to get the run here. And as we've said already, oh no, it looked as though he was going to get a perfect run out of the final corner, but the line is a little bit far away, and it looked as though for a second there that Czech Plug celebrated a little bit too early. What a finish, and what a way for the Vulcan team. It's gold, gold and red in order as they cross the line. Huge congratulations to Sam Derbyshire, the man who started on pole, led the entire race, give or take a few laps to his teammate. He brings home 100 points, and it's arrowhead formation for the 3 Vulcan drivers. Absolutely deserved, absolutely justified. And to be fair, Dawson should get himself involved with that as well, because he's sharing a brilliant championship with this team, and we know how fair they all are out there on the track. And that McLaren stays out the way as the lead 4 parade themselves around the in-lap. What a finish that was, Dara.
Yeah, great way to end an hour's worth of racing here at Montreal. I think it's in Vancouver. We're not in Vancouver, it's the other side of the country. In Montreal. But yeah, what a move that was from Plug, though. It was brave up the inside. I mean, I think we both thought the same thing. I could hear it in your voice, Joe, that it didn't really feel like there was going to be a gap up the inside there at the hairpin. Yeah, Dawson went deep, but just to push him wide, really. But all of a sudden, there's the line, and what a move that is. Executed to perfection as well. A couple of inches to the left, and we could have seen a little bit of contact and maybe 2 cars spinning around, but what a way to get into the podium spots.
Yeah, it's Plug knocking off that extra 5 or 10k at the apex just to get it turned in and getting straight back on the power. That's what got it done, and great, for Dawson to not allow him through, but obviously to not to get too, anxious in that moment. He's sort of accepted the fact that he hasn't got the best exit. He's let him go, and yeah, brilliantly executed by Plug. Forced the issue, forced someone to the inside, made it difficult at the apex, and did exactly what he needed to do. And someone has just exploded. And that is Rob Mackay. It was, he's upside down.
And Barry. Barry's having a nice time over there as well.
What on earth?
I'm not too sure what's happening there, but you know, you've got to let the kids have fun sometimes, Joe. It can't just all be serious work. Sometimes you need to let them get their hair down, maybe get a little bit dirty, get some mud on them, and well, Barry's taken that to another level, isn't he? I don't really know what he's doing. why
Yeah,
he's send himself to
I know.
the second, but
I'm kind of just loitering around here to see how long it takes him to reset. Rob Mackay hasn't gone anywhere either. But yeah, hey, smashing. We'll end it there, shall we? Because we could be here all night then. So very good session by all the drivers, and what a way to finish the race. That sets us up beautifully for the next 4 weeks, the next month, the next 4 rounds of the championship. We head to, I think, Coda, Sebring, Road America, and Suzuka for the next couple of rounds then. So let's take a look at how the order finished in the end, starting first with the elite class, as always. Sam Derbyshire led from pole and took home 100 points for him and his team. That will see him take the lead of the elite class championship, as said, with 4 rounds to go. It was half a second ahead of Hayden Miller, who gets his best result of the season, led a couple of laps in the race, gave it back through some little team orders that went on at the exit of turn 2 and 3, sees him finishing in second. Czech Plug with the move that we've just watched again and again, going into the turn 10 hairpin on the final lap of the race, getting himself past Andrew Dawson, former championship leader, who will now find himself in second place. What a battle, and hats off, big congratulations and a round of applause to the top 4, Derbyshire, Miller, Plug and Dawson. Best of the rest was Andrew Fairley, 16 seconds off the leaders in the end for Darkwing Racing Purple. He finished ahead of Luke Van Gortel, who gets his third sixth place finish in a row for the 114 Porsche driver. Josh Benson had a good start to the race, and I'm pretty sure he'll be satisfied with points in P7. Very good for him and Andrew to bring home some good points for SimCoach, who've fallen off in the team's championship ever so slightly. That'll help them bounce back as we look into the final month of this championship. Lewis Kenyon getting himself into the top 8, continues his good run of form, yet not to score points in the races so far this season. That is points in 8th for the third of our Vulcan Motorsports Gold drivers. Sadly for him, it won't tally anything into the team's championship, because P1 and P2 will take that claim this week. Thomas Pugh for Axis Sim Sports Blue will finish 9th ahead of Alex Fretwell in the top 10. Good finish for Mr. Fretwell. Ignas Vinchezewski's, who started in P2 or P3 it was at the start of this one, had issues with Andrew Fairley going into turn 1, recovered into P11. Not the best, but he'll be pleased to at least bring home some points. Pedro Luis da Silva is, sadly for him, finishing in his worst result of the season. We joked last week about his form, 9-7, 9-7-8, and now it's a 12 for the Portuguese driver. John Breitenbach had a good start to the race. Sadly, he had issues later on, which saw the barbecue bread racing driver drop down into 13th. It's Josh Taylor next up, and then Danny Phillips in P15. Thomas Critchell, a pretty poor result for him as well. Sadly, that stacks up to the DNFs. Double DNF for him in the last 2 weeks. P16, not an awful lot to shout about. The Darkwing Racing Mustang driver has to improve as we head into the final stages of the season. The second, his teammate Lucas Diaz-Antonis was right up there as well. Sadly for him, drops down the order, and Jamie Foster, finishing 12 laps down, will not bring home points, even though he finished inside the top 20.
And then over we go to the Premier Class, where Scott Kostrick was the winner in the end. A couple of issues towards the end for Samuel Clark means that he's only P3, and between them on the podium will be Toby Hardiak, who puts in another good performance for that Phoenix Racing Blue team to put himself on the podium. Grant Miller, the only driver tonight to be less than 10 seconds off the winner and not be on the podium in either class. He finished 4th for Phoenix Racing Red. He was just ahead of Wesley Van Ren, the second of the Dutchmen for the Pegasus Panthera team. Graham Favors and Hussein Sarkadesla 6th and 7th, and Sarkadesla was only 200ths ahead of Marcel Breitenbach across the line. They dragged race for 7th and 8th. Michael Rhodes and Rob Mackay rounded out that top 10. Barry Memon ended his race on the roof, but not before, I should say. He finished in P11, and after Lewis Hammond's difficulties with some damage early on, he was able to come home in 12th. Waters, Shane Cotton and Liam Yaniso all a lap down inside the top 15. Andrea Muntian 2 laps down, but will pick up the points for P16. Saturday for Luke Bailey, for Danny Weir, for James Paolo, Tiago Reiser, Jordan Maymar and Dennis Curler. None of them saw the checkered flag and are all far too far down to get any points tonight.
Very good then. So let's go and speak to some of our drivers. Good news is we have Sam Derbyshire and we have Hayden Miller in the interview booth waiting a chat. We'll definitely bring Hayden in this week. We didn't get him in last time, and he sent me a message saying, I had my best result of the season. He's improved it this time into second place. So we'll bring in the young Scotsman for a word in a short while. Let's go back to the start of the race, and then we'll get everything prepared, and we'll bring in our first driver for a quick word. So, Dara, I'll leave it up to you if you'd like to bring in Mr. Derbyshire or Mr. Miller to begin with, and then we'll go from there.
I think we've got to bring in Sam and then Mr. Miller, because Sam, of course, in the end, winning the race. Another good result for the Northern Irishman. Sam, welcome in. Can you hear us, first of all?
Yes, I can.
Good stuff, Sam. Welcome into the booth yet again. And I think we just have to start with the obvious. It was a frantic end to the race. I'm sure you were hearing Mr. Plurg celebrating his finish, getting past Andrew Dawson. So talk us through that. Pole led most of the race. A little bit of complications with your teammate as well, jostling for positions now and again. But overall, a cracking result for you. And I think that will put you at the front of the order heading into the final 4 weeks.
Yeah, it wasn't a great race in terms of back markers, I really didn't feel like I should have been in that position, that I was that close to everyone anyway, but it is what it is. Big shout out to Hayden for letting me pass through and keeping me in the tow. Not a pleasant race on my behalf, a bit scruffy, so hopefully next week's a bit better.
Yeah, and I mean, for you, the last few weeks have really been a bit of a pick-up, and I think there's a lot of confidence to be built, right, from the last few weeks. How do you see the next couple of weeks playing out? Because very different circuits to where we've been of late, and of course the championship is starting to focus itself in, but you will, I believe, go into that next race as the championship leader. Does that change your outlook at all?
Not particularly, albeit I'll be much more looking forward to the next couple of tracks due to the size of the tracks and passing back markers. It will be a little bit easier because currently the past couple of races it's kind of done me in a little bit. Hopefully just keep doing what I'm doing, keep cool, keep calm, and try and stick it on pole again next week and try and walk off again.
Yeah, we were saying, obviously, like you alluded to there, Sam, it didn't quite end how I imagine you imagined it to, right? At the start of the race, you two got away well, 2 Corvettes leading the race under very little pressure. What changed? I mean, the pit stops weren't so bad, and then toward the end of the race, it just got, as you said, the back markers got a little bit dicey. But I was saying that it looked as though you two would be quite comfortable to sort of build that gap, and then before we knew it, we had a 4-car fight for the lead.
Yeah, I mean, we had the Mustang coming out the pits, who held me up for the entire first sector, then lets Andy through. So it's one of them. And then there was that 3-car of some of the pros that we had to navigate, and that's when Hayden obviously went past me, because I can't risk taking out another driver. I don't want to ruin someone else's race. It's just one of those. It's so hard to overtake, and people are in their own battles and don't want to let you through. And some questionable decision making, but you've got to take it on the chin and move on. So hopefully next week will be a bit better.
Absolutely. Then, and I believe off the top of my head, we head to Kota this time next week, so a little bit more of a, well, this is a brilliant circuit, but a bit more of a traditional circuit. The wall's not so close, of course, and a very nice and flowing track, so you must be filled with confidence coming into that one, and of course into the final 4 rounds of the season.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, the last time Kota was on the calendar, I won it, so hopefully we'll carry on doing that again. So fingers crossed.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. Well, before we let you go, as always, we'll give you an opportunity for a shout out if you'd like to give that to anybody, and then we'll go and speak to your teammate Hayden and see how he got on tonight.
Honestly, just a big shout out to Hayden, mate. Great teammate, great lad. That's all I've got to say. But
Very
cheers,
good.
gents, and I'll see you again next week.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Cracking effort, and if you watch the broadcast back, I'm sure you'll enjoy it because it's pretty packed. So good stuff. Congratulations. Enjoy the weekend, and good luck with your prep for next week.
Yeah, you too. Cheers, gents.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Sam. Sam Derbyshire, their winner, of course, overall in this race, but he was helped very much towards the end by his teammate Hayden Miller, who finished P2, but was in the lead for a little bit. Hayden, welcome in. Can you hear us, first of all?
Yes, I can.
Well, welcome, Hayden, into the booth once again, of course. You tried to have a word with us last week after what was your joint best result of the season, but you've one upped yourself this time. Nearly a race victory. Obviously, we got the impression that you allowed Sam to take the victory, obviously with the championship in mind, but you definitely had the pace tonight, and you know, had it not been for the championship, you may well have won the race tonight. You got yourself through a bit of misfortune, let's say, with the back markers, but brilliant pace by you and brilliant pace by the team. How does it feel overall to have such a strong finish as a team?
Yeah, it feels great. I'll be honest with you, I've just came down with an extreme case of the flu, so I was literally contemplating, sat on the sofa 5 minutes after the session of launch, saying, do I even jump in here? Decided to go into practice to see how I felt, and yeah, seeing I was on pace with the top guys with not much practice, so I was like, I may as well have a go. Then my nose really kicked off into the start of the race, so I was like, oh mate, do I actually have to go and pull this thing over because I can't race? But hopefully that wasn't the case. Just pushed through it. But yeah, just after just getting my head down, chatting to Sam and all the Vulcan guys in the voice channel, coming up with strategies and how to deal with Mr. Dawson behind us, who's just a weapon on this fuel saving stuff as he is because he's 9k. So basically it was just about keeping the head down, keeping with Sam until the pit stops, and luckily enough we got a lap longer than Andy. Boxed and came out with, I think I came out with 3 extra litres of fuel, so I don't know where I pulled that off, don't know how. Haven't done that in my 3 seasons of racing here. I don't think I never will again. But yeah, after that it was just, again, keeping the head down, keeping it clean. Me and Sam got quite unfortunate with a couple of slowdowns and mistakes. Just brushes with the wall, as this track's just incredibly hard to keep clean on the 1Xs in the wall. It's such a fine margin when you try to push it. It's if you push it by half a tenth too much, you'll be in the wall. But yeah, it was really fun. Yeah, can't wait for next week.
Yeah, and of course, next week is COTA, very different circuit to Montreal here this evening in pretty much every single characteristic. Is it a circuit looking forward to, hoping to build off of this good result from?
It's a tough one. I've not had the best of history with COTA. I don't really get on with the track. I don't see any fun in it, but obviously that's not going to stop me from driving at it, especially with the help from the Vulcan guys, especially Sam with the same car, with setup help and driving technique. Hopefully I can pass that down to Lewis Kenyon, or if Lewis Kenyon could teach me anything, it should just be great. Also, Sid, who was Season 8 champion in the vet, although different time model, but he's just as fast, same like Ignas. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Just have to put the practice in, put the effort in. Hopefully I'm not too slow. Yeah,
sounds good. And obviously it's nearly, well, it's maximum points in the teams, of course. Obviously you could have a driver in a different class, but yeah, 190 points I think it will be for the pair of you tonight, so that will definitely help you extending that lead at the front of the order. So very well done, mate. To yourself, of course, having your best finish of the season. Could have been more, but as I said earlier, good for Sam as well. Brilliant for the team. And yeah, great to speak to you. If you'd like to give a shout out to anybody before we let you go, you can go ahead and do that now, and then we'll speak to our Premier Class Championship leader.
Yeah, just again, like what Sam said on the podcast, huge shout out to Vulcan, Andy as well, for giving me some. When I'm there, I need to ask him some tips. He'll happily help me. But yeah, big shout out to Sam and Sid, Vulcan, Ignas and Lewis, just for being there. Yeah, and shout out to you guys for the great broadcast.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you very much. Good luck with your prep, and yeah, good luck. We'll look forward to seeing Vulcan back out there next week and over the next couple of rounds.
Cheers, thank you. See you.
Cheers, Hayden Miller. P2 in the end in the elite class, P2 in the Premier class, and championship leader is still Toby Hardiak after another good result. Toby joins us now. Welcome in. Can you hear us first of all?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Welcome back, Toby, speaking with us again. It's become a common theme for you to have these strong results, of course. If we forget about Magello, because that was out of your own control, aside from that, it's been one hell of a season so far. You'll extend the lead you won't extend the lead. The lead will be brought down ever so slightly behind Mr. Kostrick. But for you, how did that feel? Qualifying was okay. You had some work to do. In the end, a second place is probably the best that you could hope for. Unfortunately for Samuel Clark, a bit of an incident with another driver, which obviously led to your promotion into second. But overall, championship well and truly still on, and you've got a nice little cushion as we head into the final few rounds.
Yeah, I think qualifying did went well, especially my first stint. I had a lot of wheel trouble in my when I was trying to get into my second stint, and did a very silly mistake, leading to my end of qualifying. But in the race, I thought the pace was good, but again not faultless. So there's some work for me to do. I overfueled, ended up with 2 laps worth of fuel at the end, which I think held me too long in the pits. And then when I got close to Scott, who was driving a very good race, I got my only slowdown of the race, trying to get set up a pass on him into Tier 1. So it was a learning experience today, but I think still the championship is well and still truly on. So
Yeah, and that's what you really want, isn't it? At this stage of the season, Toby. But I mean, we had Montreal tonight, and like you said, you drove well, but there were still those things to clean up. Next week when we go to Kota, it's a very different circuit in all kinds of characteristics. How do you have to change your driving style, if at all, to adapt to changes like that? And how difficult is that to do week on week?
to be honest, I'm quite clueless. I haven't driven Kota yet on the GT3, so it's going to be a first time for me. I know the track somewhat, so that is maybe one advantage I have. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of laps and a lot of learning, and hopefully watching people like Grant and other people in the team see what the technique should be and what the line should be at around that circuit in the GT3 course.
Yeah, and you must be feeling comfortable. As you say, you're going into a circuit with very little to no experience. However, the margin that you've been able to build up, you know, you must find some comfort knowing that you don't have to be at your best anymore, necessarily. You could have some pretty strong results for the rest of the season. It will hopefully be enough to keep you ahead of the likes of Kostrick, of course, and even Grant Miller and Luke Bailey, who didn't have the best night of it tonight either. Sadly, no points for Luke. So, yeah, you say that may not be the best for you next week, but, you know, the hard work is nearly done. And as the weeks tick on, less and less pressure, especially having a nice little buffer ahead of P2.
Yeah, I agree. I think having that advantage right now is good for me, and certainly it makes me a bit more comfortable on race starts, but also when chasing people. I tend to start taking a bit more slow and know if I finish P2 or P3 behind Scott and Luke, I still have the advantage. But there's always that competitor in me that wants to win, and I think tonight that was shown when I tried to pass Scott and got a bit overly excited and yeah, got that slowdown. So it's a bit of a mix. I like to win. I like to always try to be that competitor and try to win races. But there's also that slight voice in my head that's saying you can take it easy as well sometimes, and P3 might not be that bad, or P2. So I think that's great going forward, and but I'll still try to get some more race wins. I enjoy winning very much.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's the right balance, you know. Don't put too much pressure, but also don't take your eye off the ball. So not too many rounds to go, a month left, and then we'll see where you end up. So congratulations, it was a good fight through the field, and to get to your eventual second place. And yeah, good luck with your preparation. Before we let you go, as always, if you'd like to give a shout out to anybody, you can go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, I'd like to do it to the entire Phoenix Racing team. I think yeah, even though I'm in blue, we're a very close-knit group. We have a lot of fun conversations, and I hope that continues, and yeah, until the end of the season.
Good stuff, Toby. Thanks for joining us. Good luck over the weekend, of course, and yeah, we might speak to you again this time next week.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Awesome, mate. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Toby Hardiak, again, joining us because he is still doing so well, isn't he, at the top of the championship. One more man to get a word from, and that is Mr. Alex Fretwell. Alex, welcome in. You can hear us, first of all.
Yes, can.
Well, welcome into the booth, Alex. It's been a little while since we've spoken, and, you know, not to highlight the season so far, but we haven't really spoke to you because, sadly, you haven't had the best season of it. However, it's tonight, it was a good finish around a very tricky circuit. We've been seeing you having very unfortunate incidents that, well, are very rarely your own doing, which has obviously led to the less than impressive season. However, tonight went very well. So, how are you feeling in the car? Of course, in that McLaren, is it a car that you've driven before? I think so, right? And obviously, what do you expect to get out of the next 4 rounds?
Yeah, beyond the odd incident, I'm surprised you've even noticed I'm here so far, to be honest. Yeah, I've been in the McLaren before. It's a little tricky, but there's ways around it and ways to make it work. I wasn't expecting much from it tonight. It's not one that I expected it to go particularly well at. Quali-wise, I sort of hit a bit of a wall early on, so had sort of 15-20 minutes out of it, and then came back for the better conditions towards the end, and actually gained about 6/10, I think. So. And
that was a mental wall rather than a physical one.
Yeah. Well, I brushed a few of those. But yeah, that got me obviously 15th on the grid, and that's a bit of a problem I've had sort of at the start of the season, not getting the most out of quali, and then obviously you start in mid-pack or lower pack, and things are all just a bit more, a bit more sketchy. So I got out of that, and yeah, just started picking off a few places, mostly through people having incidents. And then it was pretty lonely, to be fair. Just sat sort of 2-3 seconds behind Thomas Pugh for most of it. And I did sort of, I could see on the standings that there were people that could be an issue towards the end, and obviously you want to be relaxing in the last 5-10 minutes, and having Ignis of all people closing you down is not the easiest. I think it got down to about 4 seconds towards the end. So it was never really comfortable. He's the kind of driver that can take 2 seconds out of you easily in one lap. So yeah, a little bit of tension all the way to the end, but yeah, came home, and top 10 is pretty much as good as I can expect at the minute, I think.
Yeah, but you are where you are, and it's sort of, as long as you're still having fun, you're still showing up, and you're still putting the laps in, which is always good to see. It means that you can enjoy the running without an awful lot of pressure. So thinking ahead to that, of course, we've got Kota coming up next week. We've got Sebring, Road America, and Suzuka, a personal favourite of mine. Do any of those stand out for you as one that you'll be looking forward to more than the others, or even one where you might be able to improve on this 10th place finish?
I think improving on P10 is going to be tough. I don't think there was necessarily a full grid here tonight, so maybe gained a few that would normally be right up there. And like I said, obviously Ignis isn't going to be finishing P11 every week either. There's drivers like that had a bit of an off night. Suzuka, I think, should suit the McLaren pretty well. It tends to be sort of at its best in those sort of medium and high speed corners, so yeah, probably looking forward to that one. Kota, I guess you could say as well, but that final sector obviously is a bit different. Just keep trying to get the best out of it, and just keep trying to maximise the result. As long as I can sort of look back and think, there was nothing left on the table, didn't make any mistakes, didn't bin it or anything like that, I'll be happy.
Exactly.
I knew coming into this season, obviously in the elite class, it was going to be tough, but yeah, just sort of give it my best shot.
And much on the horizon for RLH these days? Things happening? Any plans to return next season, etc.? Tell us how it's feeling in the team at the moment.
I think a couple of the lads have shown an interest or signed up. We've got a couple of the 9PP boys that have. We've got a little bit of a relationship going there as well. So exact teams probably need to be worked out, but I'm sure that most of us will be back.
Very good, very good. Well, it's always good to speak, mate. It's few and far between, but maybe we'll have another chance before the end of the season. So yeah, thanks for waiting first of all and giving us some of your time.
Yeah, I am pretty desperate for a comfort break, so thanks for leaving me till last.
That's all right then. Yeah, very good, mate, very good. Well, best of luck in your preparation. Maybe I'll set you a small challenge, see if you can get yourself in the top 12 by the end of the season, so we have you on our little graphic. But let's see how that one goes with your preparation and whatnot. Enjoy the weekend, enjoy Halloween tomorrow if you're doing anything. And maybe we'll speak to you before the end of the season.
Yep, spot on. Thanks a lot, guys.
Cheers, mate. See you soon.
Cheers, Alex. Alex went well.
Oh, Tara's moved himself out of the channel rather than Alex there, so he's brought himself
back. I'm like, oh, there's no one here anymore.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, I'll tell you what, Dara, that was a smashing race and some good interviews, actually. Getting a lot of detail out of some of those drivers. It's a pretty interesting dynamic, and like I said at the end of the race, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing to have so many competitive drivers in Vulcan, because, like I said, you end up getting caught up with one another, but it seems like they're all pretty, they're all on the same page. They all know what they're pushing for. The teams is not quite in the bag, but it's looking good, and then Sam Derbyshire just has to keep doing what he has been doing. The only way I can see Dawson really getting back into it consistently is if he is consistently starting, let's say, inside the top 4. If he has any qualifying sessions that are 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, it's going to get increasingly difficult for him because we know how strong the Vulcan drivers are in qualifying particularly.
Yep, and we'll have to see if that can continue. You'd be hard-pressed to say that it won't. Because they're performing that well at many differing circuits with varying characteristics. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how we approach next week, because you'd feel like it's going to be completely different, but you never do know, do you?
No, you do not then. So I'm looking forward to this one. I'm looking forward to the run-in. But Coda is definitely a track that offers quite a lot and very different, as you said, very different characteristics to what we see here. So looking forward to that one. Absolutely. We've had that in AGT recently, of course. Formula 1 was there a few weeks ago. So in the motorsports world, and especially in the SimRacing International world, there's been a lot of that on the cards as of late. So we're looking forward to seeing how those drivers get on with that one when we join them for round 7 this time next week then. So before we finish, a quick wrap up. There should be another graphic, which I forgot to use. I'll have that corrected for next week, but that will remove the Monday evening series. That one has been put on hold for the time being while we get everything organised, of course. We're in the midst of coming up with the new Sunday UKSR series, and of course still going on with the America's GT Challenge, and as you heard there from Mr. Fretwell at the end, sign-ups for existing drivers available at the moment for season 11. Those will shortly be going live to drivers outside of the league, inside the league but outside of the series very, very shortly. So you can join myself and Dara for the next month here on Thursday evenings as we go through round 7 to 10 of the GT3 Season 10 Championship. Paul Walsh is also live at the moment down there in Split B, covering the Pro and Evo classes, so be sure to go and hop over to see him. He will still be, as always, deep into his lengthy interviews, so if you want to go and show him some love, hop over there now. You can find him also here on SimRacing International YouTube channel. The UKSR Sunday GT3 series well underway as well, alternating between that and the America's GT Challenge, which has just finished its round at Sebring, and we go to Canada, believe it or not, in the next round of that one, which is the following Sunday. So you can join Paul Walsh for that one on Sunday evenings, getting underway between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. And then, of course, anyone who wants to hop into a couple of sessions with us for free, you can join us in our practice league Tuesday evenings and Saturday mornings. All the information for the league, the series, and the sponsors can be found discord.gg/SimRacing International. Then it's been a cracking evening. I'm glad that we had such an eventful end to the race. It really, really spices things up for what will be the final 4 rounds of the championship. As if we haven't said it enough already, Coda, Sebring, Road America and Suzuka await the drivers before the end of November, and myself and Dara cannot wait to take you all through it. So thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone who stuck around to the end, as always. Enjoy Halloween tomorrow, enjoy the weekend, and we'll catch you all this time next week.